It's time for Windows Weekly. Paul Thurrott and Mary Jo Foley are here. The Microsoft Windows 11 apps are also here. We'll talk about those. One more patch for Microsoft's printer issues. Let's hope it takes this time. And a surprising success for Sea of Thieves. It's all coming up next on Windows Weekly.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott and Mary Jo Foley. Episode 738, recorded Wednesday, August 18th, 2021. Gidget goes to Mexico. Windows Weekly is brought to you by CrowdStrike. CrowdStrike harnesses the power of every click, every action, every ally to grow stronger and stop cyber threats before they can stop you. Join the fight and experience the power of Falcon Platform free today at crowdstrike.com/twit. And by Worldwide Technology and Dell Technologies. With an innovative culture, thousands of IT engineers, application developers, unmatched labs, and integration centers for testing and deploying technology at scale, WWT helps customers bridge the gap between strategy and execution. To learn more about WWT, visit wwt.com/twit. It's time for Windows Weekly, the show where we cover the latest news from Microsoft in the dog days of summer. Paul Thurrott is in Mexico, old Mexico, where he will be for a few more days. He, of course, writes at Thurrott.com, and he, despite his vacation, continues to labor on. And also, and I presume on the Field Guide to Windows 11 in progress. Mm-hmm. Also, Mary Jo Foley, who is in the dog days of summer in Manhattan.
Yes.
Yeah. From allaboutmicrosoft.com. Is it pretty warm in Manhattan today?
Yeah. The humidity is 75% right now, and it's like in the 80s. Yeah, it's not great.
But not as bad as last week, thank goodness.
No. I know. My docking station so far, knock on plastic, is holding. Not melting.
Paul, how much longer are you going to be? Are you in Mexico City still? Where are you these days?
Yeah. So this is the Airbnb. I'm in my son's bedroom because
I saw you got the kids down there. Was that?
Yeah.
So that's just for the tail end of the thing, or?
That's right. Yeah, we were the first week alone, and then the second week with the kids, and then we fly back tomorrow. Yeah.
Oh, that's nice that they could join you. And then they're going back to school, I would imagine, as they come back.
Yeah, we were all just looking at the weather back home, and here every day it's 72 during the day and 58 at night, and you go home and it's 91 degrees and 90-something% humidity, and it's like, what is going on in this world?
Is it pretty dry in Mexico City? It's a high altitude, so it must be. Yeah. Well, anyway, we're glad to have you and your food pictures.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, the best pictures were the balloon pictures.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Tell me about that. You were in a hot air balloon.
I know.
And at first I thought, are they taking this picture from a balloon? And then I realized, oh, that's a drone. So I guess the company.
Yeah. So we saw they had drones up. My daughter didn't get to go. She came up sick that morning. And so we drove out there. We'd driven out there. And then, it's about an hour, a little more in the air. But they had a drone flying around. We thought, well, that's kind of cool. And then they also had some GoPro cameras, which I haven't posted pictures from that yet. It's a little ponderous. But they were taking pictures like from the side of the balloon as well, and we took our pictures. But afterwards, those guys were everyone here is so nice. It's crazy. Like they said, they couldn't refund her ticket, but they bought us all breakfast, and they gave us all the photos and videos for free.
What?
Wow.
Yeah, that's
they normally
usually,
try to,
Yeah, that's the profit center right there.
Right.
Yeah,
they
that's nice.
Oh, and they're beautiful videos. They really do a nice job.
I know.
Yeah. It's gorgeous.
I would love to do that. That looked so fun. It was like,
It's amazing. And, so many people the feedback is, oh, you're crazy. I would never do that. And this is the third time for Stephanie and I, and the first time for Mark. But it is the most natural thing in the world. And it, unlike an airplane, which is breaking every law of physics to get you into the air, this thing takes off. You don't even notice it taking off. It's the smoothest.
Yeah, you're just floating.
Stress-free thing. It's wonderful. Yeah.
What percentage of balloons actually pop?
Right. Well, so I try not to respond in this way, but my response in my head to people who say you're crazy is, well, you get in a car every day, right?
Yeah, that's a lot crazier.
There are far more car accidents as a percentage, or however you want to measure it, than there are. There's, when a balloon crashes, it's news. Like you hear about it. There was a balloon crash sometime in the past couple months. I don't remember when, but it's not very common.
No.
Yeah.
And by the way, that guy, the guy who flew the balloon, of course, is an older gentleman. We asked him how long he'd been doing it. He said 28 years.
Wow.
And that's sweet. That's what you want. You want that guy.
Yeah.
And he was fantastic. He got down and almost, we were feet above one of the pyramids at one point and went right over the top of it.
What is it? Say it.
I'm not going to pronounce it right.
Okay.
Mike will get this. It's like Teotihuacan or
Taekwondo. Yeah. Wow. Oh, how fun.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you're having a great vacation, and we're grateful that you're willing to come on the show during your vacation. Lisa said, tell Paul that if he overeats or over drinks, he doesn't. He could take a week off. You do get a vacation if you want.
Here's how I look at it. So first of all, I'm not really on vacation. I still work every day, right? So most days
you have to anyway.
Yeah, it's just it's working from a different place. I mean, I'm sort of thinking about this as prepping for the future.
The digital nomadic future. Yeah.
Yeah, and you guys, there are weeks off from holidays and things and all that, and so that's when I take my time off. So it's okay. I like doing the show.
Yeah. Well, we love having you, so thank you. That's what I told Lisa. Don't tell him that.
Don't tell me he can take time
Don't tell him he can take time off.
No, I really don't mind doing it. I was talking to, we did audio tests before, and I was so distraught over how terrible last week was. I thought I had done everything I could to make sure it was as good as possible.
It was not your fault. The microphone died.
That's what I've since found out. So we did another test today, and it's at least hopefully acceptable. I know it's
fine. It's not perfect. It's fine. It's good.
Last week you sounded like you were in a tube. You did. You were like in a little.
I listen. There's nothing I want to see less than me. But last week I went back and watched a little part of it, and it was just it was
painful.
Was
I know.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
It's all right, but we wanted to get you on, and it's worth it for that. As long my attitude is, I don't want the audio to be annoying. Like somebody's listening, go, I can't listen to this, and it wasn't like that. It just wasn't. It you sounded like it was not great, but we can understand every word, and that's more important to me. The content. So
and your folks did everything they could to find the best possible
we EQ'd the hell
combination of things. There was just nothing that was any good.
Nothing could fix it. Well, you sound better today, and you'll sound even better next week, even though you might be a little depressed.
I know.
Having to come
home. It's going to be so weird.
I know.
Well, the other thing is, all these people who started following me on Instagram because of all these photos are going to be super excited when I start taking pictures of my dog again next week.
It's Lehigh Valley once again. Welcome back. You're thinking about moving, though, right?
Well, we're thinking about splitting our time and moving around, and
nice.
So every time we do any trip, we sort of evaluate it for that, and what could this be like?
Where would you like to live? Yeah. We, as you know, we're going down with Mike and Amira Elkin in a couple of months, and they're in Italy right now doing Prosecco, and then they're going to do. Sure. I mean, they really have embraced that lifestyle, and I think Mike loves it.
So years ago, my wife and I have been talking about this for years. I saw a picture of Mike. Mike took a picture. It was a panoramic shot from a cafe in Barcelona.
Yeah.
And I said, Stephanie, come here. And I said, F this guy. What is he doing? This is what we talk about, and he's doing it.
How dare he?
How
dare he?
No, I love Mike, obviously, but we have, we had to wait for the kids to get into college and out of college.
This is the time you do it. Yeah, he did the same thing. So we put a note up at the top of the notes this week, the show notes, saying, nothing much going on. So let's take questions. So I just want to warn the chat room and the Discord, we will be calling on you to fill.
Help us fill up the show.
The cheapest form of entertainment is when you get to do it first.
I actually really like it. I do a call-in radio show, so obviously I embrace it. But get your questions ready. We'll, if you're in the Discord, go into the stage, listen there, and raise your hand, and we'll start taking those in a little bit. But first, there are some stories. There's some news.
Yeah.
Some Windows 11 news.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, so last week, day after Windows Weekly, which seems to be their new norm now. I think they're doing it just to taunt us, basically. They dropped a new build for both the dev channel and the beta channel. So I didn't think the build was that interesting. There were a bunch of fixes and whatnot. But then they are also starting to roll out the new inbox apps, right? What they call the new inbox apps. So there's the new snipping tool that you could start testing. There's the new calculator, and there's the new mail app, right? Mail and calendar app. The mail and calendar app is not much of a change. I don't
think any of them are new. I think we should step through each of these because you get very excited when you hear about new apps because this is, of course, once you get over here's the new UI, we get it. Yeah. It's the apps that make a difference, right?
Yeah. And then the other thing that was new is the dev channel. Everybody in the dev channel now can check out the chat from Teams capability that's integrated, the button that's in the browser. So they're starting to fill that out a little bit. So they're adding things like one-on-one, the ability to talk one-on-one and have group audio, video calling, a lot of the things around, toggling the microphone on and off, the camera on and off. All those things are starting to fill in now. So just as a refresher, this is Microsoft trying to get people to try Teams consumer features, right? So they're saying if you already have a Teams account, now you can just enable the consumer features for that. And if you don't, when you click on that button, I believe you're prompted to go get the Teams app and start using it that way.
Right.
Right. Of the new apps, the ones I've tried, I don't love the new snipping tool, I have to say, because, and I'm not surprised I don't. I love the simplicity of the original snipping tool, and I never really liked Snip and Sketch. I thought it was kind of like OneNote, too many things going on, although I know other people love the new Snip and Sketch because they like the ability to annotate their snips and all that. But this new snipping tool that's like a hybrid of the two, of the old and the new snipping tool, there's just more steps to take a snip. Unless you use the keyboard shortcut, then there are not as many steps, but I never used keyboard shortcuts. So for me, it's like drag and drop, select your image, and then I have to go find where's the save icon for the thing? And I'm like, you know what? The other one was so much better.
I think, these things are so subjective. I mean, some people have whatever needs they have. And, I have to look at this, why would I use this kind of a tool? And I do take a lot of screenshots, obviously, for articles and so forth. But my needs are so specialized, I use a third-party tool.
Yeah.
And called GreenShot, which is fantastic, by the way. And one of the things it can do is capture the mouse pointer and do that kind of thing. And I need that. I need that for the book, and I need that for shots on the site and so forth. So
it does make you wonder, because if people really want a elaborate snipping tool, there's plenty of third-party options that maybe but I guess there's pressure on every company to add features. That's how consumers judge you.
They've walked away from the name Snip and Sketch, but just that name alone suggests an emphasis on using a pen to write something on it. And I just don't feel like a lot of people are going to do that.
I know. We'll hear from every single person who does it. I know. But people do it.
I do it on my phone all the time. Because you're sending tickets or you're sending, a picture. That I understand. I don't know if on the desktop you do it as much. Maybe, I don't know.
I mean, obviously some people, if you're a Surface Pro user or something, maybe that's what you're into. But
Microsoft wants to push that idea, right? But the pencil.
But Snip and Sketch and the snipping tool are examples of a big problem at Microsoft where they have multiple tools that do the same thing. And I'm not even talking about those two tools because I know they're getting consolidated, but rather with things like the Windows key plus print screen, which will save a screenshot automatically to your pictures folder, and all the different. It's literally a section in the book on Windows 10 I have. It's just all the different ways you can take screenshots. I mean, it's kind of crazy. And it'd be nice if these things were all just one thing.
Right. I know.
We're getting there.
I bet most people just use print screen, right? The print screen button.
Probably. A lot of people still do that, right? Yeah. Right. So I saw a lot of people super disappointed about the mail and calendar one because all it is rounded corners, basically, right? But don't forget, everyone, this is just a placeholder app, right? Microsoft's working on this new unified Outlook app codenamed Monarch that we've talked about before on the show.
Yeah.
And so next year, Monarch is going to replace the mail and calendar app if they stick to their plan. So they're not putting a lot of time or effort into the mail and calendar app. They're just rounding the corners. Yeah, calling it a day.
It shows. Yeah. I think that's the big message here. Like you said it exactly right up front. It's like you hear this new build, you're like, interesting. You look at it, it's not that interesting. Oh, wait, there's new apps. Oh, awesome. We've been waiting for this. Oh, I see.
know.
It's just the first wave. There are a bunch of more apps, I'm sure, that can be pushed over. And like you said, in the future, we'll finally get rid of those two terrible apps. But
you know what I'm waiting to see is Notepad. Like, I'm just dreading what they're going to do to Notepad. But let's hope for the best and hope if they round the corners of Notepad, I'm all good. Like,
I'm hoping it's going to be like getting a COVID shot where you're really nervous about it, and then it happens, and you're like, oh, that was it?
Yeah. That would be perfect, right? Yeah, I don't know. What other apps are they going to update, though, that are considered inbox apps, right?
Right. Well, let's see.
I know,
the Xbox app is coming to Windows 11. That will be part of it. The Office app, the Photos app, which, by the way, honestly, of all the apps that are built into Windows, either Windows 10 or 11, I think the biggest and most complex and probably least well understood is Photos. Because Photos has this integrated video editor, which is rather incredible, by the way. And in a way, it's too bad they couldn't have split it out into its own thing, but they didn't, so whatever. But that's one of those apps. But there's a ton. Calculator, which we know is being updated. Yep. Camera, alarm and clock.
Paint, Paint.
Paint?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yep.
That's a big deal. I'm just trying to see what else is
What's the occasion for this? I mean,
they're Windows 11 apps, right? Like, they want them to look new and fresh and make Windows 11 look better and them to look better on Windows 11. Right.
So do they always do this when there's I guess they did for Windows 10, did they? I guess they did.
Yeah,
I don't know, did they?
Yeah,
they don't. They don't. Yes, I mean, it doesn't always happen when you want it to happen. I mean, sometimes a version of Windows will ship with the previous gen apps, and then you do it. They automatically get updated through the store. So even in, I think even in 21H1, if you install it from scratch, I could be wrong, but at least one of the previous versions, you get all the old versions of the apps. Remember when they had the white icons? And then you either do it manually through the store or it just happens in the background. Those apps will eventually be updated with the new icons, which we now know to be, or I should say, we would now call Windows 11 style icons. They were originally kind of Windows 10X style icons or whatever. So that, I mean, one of the side effects of this app updating capability is that whatever app version ships in whatever version of the OS happens to be called RTM or whatever, that's just a slice in time. I mean, as soon as they're up, they'll be updated immediately or nearly immediately. So there has to be some version in the box, so to speak, but they'll always be updated.
So the one thing that everyone's still waiting for that isn't there is the Android apps in the store. Like, that's still not there, right? The capability for that. And every time a new build comes out now, everyone's like, where is the Android app store and the Windows store? And I wonder when they're going to add that, because we're starting to get towards the end. But I was talking to somebody else about this, and I said they could add it after the thing RTMs, right? Because the store is a separate app, and so you don't need. Except the Android subsystem for Windows, I would think would have to be in the build.
I don't think that's necessarily true, but really? I guess the better, because they have the capability of updating system components midstream too. So. I guess without worrying about the details, I was just going to say what you said, which was, we're thinking this has to happen before September or October or some, date. But the truth is that this thing could RTM, which they will never say. It could go out to PC makers. It could be preloaded on computers that will be sold to consumers over the holidays, and they might ship it in January. It could arrive at any time.
But isn't the point of a public beta to work out the kinks, to test this stuff?
Leo, that's so quaint.
How 2020 of you.
Wow, you're such an adult. Yeah, one would think that's the point. But.
We don't have to push this out now. We can wait until the last possible minute and just spring it on people. It'll be great. What could possibly go wrong?
Yep.
All right.
There's
Is it possible?
they're never
Is
gonna
it
say.
telegraphing that maybe they're not ready to show it to people?
Maybe.
Yeah, I think that's
Or,
fair.
you know what I wonder? I wonder if they're still hoping against hope they could do something with Google and get more than just the Amazon store.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe they want to make a deal.
Maybe.
Yeah.
That's just me being
I
optimistic.
bet you
and
Amazon's
hopeful.
paying them. Don't you think Amazon's
Yeah, I
paying
think
for them?
I would
would
guess
think
that. Yes. I would guess yes.
Either that or it's, two companies that just don't really matter that much in the Android space, and it just behooves both to partner. And it helps Microsoft with Windows. It helps Amazon with the.
I think
part of the store.
Amazon paid Ubuntu to have an Amazon icon on the Ubuntu dock. I think this is much more likely that Amazon is giving them some substantial loot.
Yeah. Okay.
I would think.
It would certainly be a bigger deal than an icon on an Ubuntu dock. So
No, and then Amazon putting more apps in the Windows Store could be part of the deal too, like the Kindle app for Windows 11. Right?
Yeah.
So there could be like a little trading going back and
Yeah,
forth.
it's a nice. It is a nice synergy, but I don't think Microsoft could just as easily have the Google Play Store. In fact, it'd probably be better to have the Google
this is
Play
what is
Store,
it?
right?
Enemies of my enemy or
Is my
friend.
friend.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. The problem is Play services, right? Like they would want it without Google services attached, and Google's like,
But
and
don't
that's,
you sort
no.
of feel like someone is going to hack that in? Like, just the fact that there are Android services in Windows.
So it's a simple thing to put Google's App Store on a Kindle Fire tablet.
Well, there you go.
lot
So
of
I bet
people
the
do it.
people that did that are going to figure out how to do it on Windows. So
Yep. Yeah. And if you're Google, the other thing you may be holding as your card is, hey, we're in antitrust trouble. Maybe as a last-ditch effort to get out of some hot water, you do a deal with Microsoft for the store, right?
Oh,
There's all
irony.
these little things going on behind the scenes, right? It's not just like Microsoft saying, "Hi Google, could we get your store on Windows 11?" Like there's all the trading and the negotiating and threats, anger, tears, all the stages of grief. that we're going through.
Denial.
Exactly. It's not just let's do this. There's many people involved, I'm sure, and many
Oh
levels.
God, yeah, you can imagine.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That may be what's holding it up, actually.
It could be.
Yeah.
It could be.
Disagreements over how round the corners should be. And
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep.
so there have been a lot of articles this week on something you talked about a while ago, which is the change in how you make something default. And
I like to see other people catching up. It's fun.
Yeah, it took them a while. But really the focus on this is, and I think it's not really the only issue, but the focus is, look how Microsoft's going to make it hard for you to change your default browser. They want
You got to remember that when it comes to features in Windows, it's like a series of waves. There's ups and there's downs and there's ups and there's downs. And for this kind of thing, we're hitting a down. And I mentioned the reason I wrote the article, a week or so ago, and the reason I discussed it last week on the show is that I started using Firefox. And Firefox, like all browsers, has a thing that comes up and says, hey, would you like to use this as your default?
You're not the default. Would you like to change that?
Right.
Yeah.
And in every operating system on Earth, well, except for iOS, and previously in Windows, and with any browser that can implement, anyone can do this, it would make it the default. You click a button, it just does it.
Yeah.
And in Windows 11, hilariously, it just goes to an old settings interface that doesn't have as many features as it used to have, and that's what we talked about last week.
On Windows 10, though, didn't it pop up the default app control panel, right? And then it shows
Well, it's
you
not
all.
even a control panel. They actually have a new modern interface. It's kind of a panel. Like, here are all the browsers. Pick the one you want.
Right.
And that's it. Done. Now you can't. That doesn't work anymore in Windows 11. And the folks that make Firefox and Opera and whoever else are understandably upset by that. As a user, I was upset by it. That's what caused me to write the article, because Microsoft talks about how calm and serene Windows 11 is. And that's true, unless you're trying to change the default app, in which case it gets very chaotic and ugly, which is unfortunate.
So I just tried this today because I'm like, what's all the fuss about? And then I was like, oh, that's what all the fuss is about. There's like a million things you have to choose. And it's so complicated. Like trying to explain this to a normal person, if they miss that one opportunity you have to make it always your default app. And now, no, you have to go in and like do all these things, all these like PST, this, that, all the attachments, all
because it's
HTML.
every
like,
extension.
every extension, you have to pick the default.
And
it's
here's
like so crazy.
Yeah, and the problem is, for example, in the old days, so that we've gone through. Speaking of stages of grief, and I'm going to forget the exact versions, but let's say Windows 7. You could go into the control panel at the time and say and select an application like they didn't have Microsoft Edge, so Google Chrome. I want this app to have all of its defaults. That was an option. And it would wipe out every default that Internet Explorer at the time had. That's what it would do. In Windows 10, there's a very simple interface where you choose the default browser. But and if you chose Chrome, there might be occasional times where Edge would still pop up. PDF might have been one of them. I'm just doing off the top of my head. But sometimes you would run into some protocol or some file extension, like probably an MHT, which is a Microsoft HTML file, might still load in Microsoft's browser, that kind of thing. In Windows 11, my God, they've gone it like down another tube, and now it's like Mary Jo said, you have to go through everyone one at a time. But even still, there will be certain file types that Edge will still, in the case of a web browser, will still be associated with. And I'm not even sure how you would fix that. I mean, it clearly is designed so that Edge still runs sometimes. And I think Microsoft uses that to talk about usage, right? Where they can still claim some number of. I think that's really what it's part of.
Oh gosh! Wow.
So they're kind of obfuscating is not even the right word. They're explicitly preventing the user and the browser in this case from making the browser they want to be the default for everything.
Right. And the other place that Edge is the default for now anyway, and we don't know if Microsoft will change this or not, is anytime you use the widgets, so, like MSN News and Stocks and Traffic, you don't have a choice of browser right now. Like that is only Edge. That's it.
It's insane. That's insane.
Yeah. But I looked at a Q&A that I saw from Microsoft about Windows 11, and they said, for now, this is how we're doing this. So I'm like, oh, you know what? If enough people scream about this or browser vendors or whoever, maybe they'll change that, right?
It's anti-competitive. The question is whether the market constitutes some kind of a legal or antitrust challenge. And Microsoft's the one who keeps proudly proclaiming the 1.3 billion people. I think I'd make an argument that is a market. And objectively, what they're doing is anti-competitive. It's just the wrong thing to do.
The reason the organizational reason Microsoft is doing this, and the fiscal reason they're doing it, is because here are the three things that are working together in one business unit at Microsoft. Web, so the Edge stuff, MSN, and Bing. They're all together in this team called Web Experiences, right? So everything they do when they design something in that group of companies, group of products, they try to think, how can we help Bing by doing something in Edge? How can we help Bing by doing something in MSN? Yeah. Like it's all connected to that.
The widget tool that you mentioned also is MSN data based, right?
It is.
That's where the news stories come from. And look, we can't be naive here. I mean, Apple does this all the time. You are leveraging all your other services everywhere. It's a mix of services patting each other on the back and all that stuff. So. It's fine. It's fine that that's the default. You bring up the widget thing. Edge is your default browser. Edge is what launches when you choose a news story. Bing is what happens on the back end. But ideally, and this is idealistically, I guess, this thing is an open platform. You get to choose the news source. You get to choose the browser as the user. But this gets into that argument that people like to make, which is it always ends badly, which is, this is my computer. I own it, and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, technically, it's a little more nuanced than that. So we'll see if there are any legal challenges or customer complaints, class action lawsuits, whatever you want to call it. But
I know. Right.
They've been getting away with it for a while. A lot of the antitrust stuff, the regulation stuff is pointed at other companies right now. So I think Microsoft feels like they can slip in under the wire.
Yeah. I think the attitude these days, at least on some teams at Microsoft, is let's try it. Let's push the envelope. And if there's enough outcry, then we'll just back off. But if there isn't, we're just going to go forward, right? feel like the Dynamics team does this a lot, and a couple other teams do that too.
I like the word. I like that you use the word dynamics because there is an interesting dynamic to this. And I will say, if you're in any kind of relationship with a person who sees how far they can push you every single time, that's not a healthy relationship. And if that's the relationship that Microsoft has with its customers, it's troubling. And again, it's not a big deal. Microsoft doesn't run the world like they used to, right? Microsoft in the late 1990s was personal computing. They were everything. And so this kind of behavior then was very troubling. And it's no less troubling to me just as, a human being or a person or whatever. But I don't know, maybe from a broader antitrust perspective, maybe it's less troubling. But it's the same. It's the same behavior. Yeah. I mean, it's like riding a bike,
People, it's funny because we have the same conversation on Mac Break Weekly. Well, if you don't like the App Store, you can always use Android. But I don't know. Is that really a choice? It's like you don't have that many choies.
No,
2 or 3.
No.
So is the choice to say, well, I guess I'll live with whatever Microsoft's doing, or I won't use Windows? That seems like a pretty drastic choice.
Right. Well, Walt Mossberg used to always say, well, if you don't like the way Windows does things, just switch to the Mac. It's like, that's a really pat statement that is, get months of pain behind it because you're not only, you're not just buying a new computer, you're switching apps, paying for apps, it's a lot more complicated. My hope is that all of this regulatory action that's occurring we've already seen signs of this actually, it will lead to positive change. And so, if you had an iPhone 2 years ago and you just used Firefox or something, anytime you clicked on anything that Apple made, the browser came up, it was Safari. Even I'm pretty sure on Android today, even though I have Firefox set as my default, when I go into the Google Discovery feed and I click on a story, that thing loads in Chrome. It doesn't load in Firefox. That platform has far more users than Windows does, over twice as many. So we complain about this because, this is Windows. We're talking about Windows here, and it does bother me, but, everyone else is doing it is not an excuse, but everyone else is doing it.
It's also hard. If they made it impossible, then you might have a case, but because you can do it, you can't switch default browser. It's just, there's a lot of steps.
It's a question of you can, but what, there are holes, and there are holes everywhere else too. That the Google Discovery feed thing I just brought up as an example of the same kind of hole on Android that it's there today. There are many others, I'm sure. I mean, I'm not going to be able to name all of them off the top of my head, but when I think the expectation of any user, if they really thought about it, some people care, some people don't, but if you really care, you really want to use Firefox, you really want to use whatever the thing is, you expect that that's what's going to happen, But in Windows, you can do things like set a default email client, and some stuff will still pop up in the mail app because there's little interwired things in Windows that make that happen. The widgets interface that Mary Jo mentioned, it's designed to be Microsoft world. And most people out there, I'm sorry, they're not using Bing, they're not using MSN, they're not using Edge, and they're a little confused by this, And by the way, I know a lot of people are like, what are you talking about? Who cares? A lot of people just don't care.
Right.
Not caring is another problem, but this is stuff we should care about.
If you had Windows 10 and upgraded to Windows 11, but you were using Chrome and 10, would it switch you over to Edge? Does it change?
That is a good question. I think that it does not change your default browser.
So it really is an issue only with people getting a brand new computer who Edge is the default, but they don't want to use Edge.
Yeah, but I wouldn't use the word only in that sentence because I think the vast majority of people who will use Windows 11 will get it on a new computer.
Right.
Maybe anyway, we'll see. But that's my expectation. But.
Yeah, Lawn Dog in our chat room is saying, well, how long before I have to move to 11? I'm on 10. That's not really the question, is it? I mean...
Well, so this is a topic I'm going to raise in the tip when we do the back of the book stuff.
Good.
Look, there are things about Windows 11 that people listening to the show, that person who just asked that question, care. They were wondering about this stuff. They have things they want. They have specific needs. Windows 11 raises a lot of questions, and for some people will just be happy. They don't care. Oh, look, the start menu's in the middle. Who cares? But there are going to be people who care very much about these things, and Windows 11 certainly raises some questions. And it's kind of unfortunate that we're doing something that should be exciting and fun here, getting a new version of Windows. But the more you dig, the more you think, oh boy, there's some stuff in here that's not. This is Microsoft asserting their need to be a business again, and that has to be part of it, I guess.
So, Doctor,
here we go.
Yeah, Dr. Mitch, go ahead.
Dr. Mitch, updating from Windows 11 from 10, reset the default browser to Edge for him.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
I can't remember on mine because I had Chrome as my default on
either.
10, and I can't remember if I changed it or not.
And we should also, this is the standard disclaimer, this is the pre-release version of Windows 11. Who knows what the behavior is going to be when it's a real upgrade. It's completely reasonable if Microsoft is saying, well, you're an insider. We want you to test everything, including Edge. So, we're going to change your default browser.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Yeah.
But, unfortunately, the dark side of that thinking, which is correct, is that Microsoft can take advantage of that to say, well, I mean, nobody complained during the beta.
Yeah, everybody liked it.
I know.
Everybody loves Edge. Who wouldn't want to change?
Our research shows us that 65% of people love Edge. I don't understand.
Yeah. Our research shows nobody could figure out how to change it.
Nobody. No, that's not what he said. Nobody changed it because nobody could.
Because nobody could figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there are a lot of unknowns about, for instance, how long Windows 10 will continue, whether you'll be forced to go to Windows 11, that kind of thing.
No, we know that. We
do
know all
know
that
that
stuff. Yep.
Yeah,
so Windows 10 will be supported till 2025, October 2025, and so you can stay on it until then.
Okay.
If you're on 10 and you're like, you know what, Windows 11 is doing stuff I don't like, I want to wait. Right. You can. Right. They're going to keep supporting you, keep giving you security fixes. So
you got 4 years.
There will be no force, as far as we know, to make you go to Windows 11.
Right.
There'll be offers, I'm sure. Do we know if they're going to give people? I think they said there'll be free upgrades for Windows 10 users.
Yep.
Free upgrades.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay.
And this time they didn't say a limited number of free upgrades like they did, right?
So
Remember that?
Remember for the first.
Yeah.
So they did say that for Windows 10, but we know now, 5 years, 6 years in, that upgrade thing never really stopped. If you had a version of Windows 7 with a product key, you could use that key and get a Windows 10. That's true of Windows 11 today now. Whether that changes after the switch over to the RTM version, we don't. But you know what? Honestly, it's not going to change, right? So
I don't think
I did a virtual machine install while I was on this trip. I used a Windows 7 Home product key, worked fine, fully activated, no problems. So we'll see if that continues. But you know what? I bet it does.
Taro Elhonen on Twitter just said he did not have his default browser changed when he moved from 10 to 11.
Yeah,
it stayed
interesting.
Chrome. So that's interesting.
We may never know.
Well, inconsistency, by the way, this is the Microsoft hallmark.
So could be an A/B test. See who complains.
Your default might change.
It could be. Maybe, it could be an A/B test. Yep, it could be.
Who knows? Yep. People make so many assumptions from what they're seeing with Windows 11.
I know.
That it's just got to remind everybody this is all in flux.
It is. It is. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
But yeah, I gotta say, so I'm still an insider, and I'm still running Windows 11 on my HP that Paul loaned me.
You like the rounded corners on Notepad? You like that?
I didn't even notice that, which is good. This is what I want. And I was just gonna say, 10 to 11 for me is like a very subtle change, and I easily can switch back and forth between them. And half the time I don't even remember which one I'm running on which PC because they're very similar to me.
So if you really want to make it like that, use exactly the same wallpaper on both. I've run into that myself where I'm like, oh, I'm in Windows 10.
Right?
Because I don't really use Start that much. So I mean, honestly, from a visual perspective, it's just the buttons or the icons there are centered. I mean,
right?
Yeah. And then obviously some subtle differences over in the corner, but
Yep. But yeah. I like it. I think it's working pretty well for me. I still haven't green screened or black screened or blue screened, knock on wood.
I throw some water on it. I found that
worked pretty well. Nice. Nice.
Oh, God.
Maybe submerge it even, if you want to go all the way.
See how it works. That would be awesome.
Let's take a little break, more to talk about. And yes, get your questions ready. Chat room, Discord. We'll be taking those a little later on to fill out the hour and a half that we're required by federal law to provide you each week. Our show, our show today brought to you by CrowdStrike. I love this idea. You know, ransomware, of course, is a huge problem. Don't love that idea. And I really don't love the Sophie's choice that you'll have when you get hit by ransomware. Do we pay or do we lose all our data? That's not a good solution. Really, the third choice is the better choice, not to get it in the first place. And the idea behind CrowdStrike is so smart, so clever. It leverages their threat graph and every action that you do and your allies do. Every click, every action, every ally, that information is harnessed so you can stop cyber threats before they could stop you. It's CrowdStrike's Falcon platform. It's a brilliant way and a very, very effective way to stop ransomware before it hits. You're not alone in the battle against ransomware. A secure future demands a shared defense, and that's why CrowdStrike's Falcon platform uses their threat graph power, advanced AI to analyze behavior on your devices, servers, and cloud workloads to find the threats and stop them. It's an incredible security platform. It delivers the industry's most powerful set of tools to fight today's most sophisticated cyber attacks. Forrester study says Falcon Complete delivers 403% return on investment and 100% confidence. Dr. Mitch in our chat room and our Discord says, my company uses CrowdStrike Falcon and it's fantastic. Unsolicited endorsement. Thank you, Mitch. I like hearing that. I like to hear from our chatters who are using the product because it gives me the confidence as we're talking about it. It's really interesting. I think the idea is great. In fact, I'm talking to their CTO next week to get a better sense of all of this because it's a unique way of handling the threat that every business faces today. Falcon Complete stops breaches every hour of the day through expert management, threat hunting, monitoring, and remediation. And they're putting their money where their mouth is. They have also backed it with CrowdStrike's breach prevention warranty. For Falcon Complete managed customers who receive a warranty covering up to $1 million in the event of a breach. Terms and conditions apply. You won't have a breach. That's what they're saying. We'll stand by this. Gartner Magic Quadrant named CrowdStrike a leader for endpoint protection platform for 2021. Join the fight. Experience the power of Falcon Platform free today at crowdstrike.com/twit. You owe it to yourself to at least learn a little bit about this. Dr. Mitch says it's fantastic. crowdstrike.com/twit. Please use that address so they know you heard it here on Windows Weekly. crowdstrike.com/twit, because what we've built together is worth defending together. You know, ransomware creepos are banding together to attack us. We should band together for defense. Why do it alone? CrowdStrike and the Falcon platform. crowdstrike.com/twit. Paul Thurrott, Mary Jo Foley, we're talking about Microsoft. Huh?
I didn't do it.
Yeah, not me. But me. What me? So Microsoft, I think this sounds like a Mary Jo. If at first you don't succeed in Teams consumer business, try again. Hire a consumer app expert. That's what Microsoft's doing, right?
Yeah.
Who'd they
Great.
get?
Did you guys know this guy? I had never heard of him till this week. Manik Gupta.
I'd heard his name.
Uber?
Yeah. Former Uber chief product officer. He also worked at Google for quite a few years on the Maps team. So they hired him because he's an expert in consumer apps. And he's going to be now the new corporate vice president of Teams Consumer.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Right? Right. So they're trying to really, really redeem themselves in the consumer space. After having some big public missteps like Windows Phone and the band and Groove Music, and we could go on and on with the list, Cortana, they're trying to kind of redeem themselves. And so the way to do that is find somebody who really understands the consumer market, make them the head of Teams Consumer, and figure out how can we get people to try these consumer features in Teams. To me, the more interesting thing is he's not just head of Teams Consumer. He's also going to be the corporate vice president of Skype and of GroupMe, which Microsoft owns as well.
Oh, interesting.
So everybody always asks me, so what's going to happen to Skype now that they're really pushing Teams consumer features? Microsoft has said we plan to support Skype for the foreseeable future. My read on that is at least until October 2025 when Windows 10 is no longer supported.
Yeah.
But they haven't given a date. They haven't said what's next for Skype. They haven't really done much with GroupMe, in my view. I mean, it's there, but you never really hear Microsoft promoting it or bundling it with something or talking it up. So we'll see if this guy is going to suddenly make this very convoluted Skype strategy clear. That'd be nice.
What kind of acceptance? I mean, Skype certainly has been used by consumers. What kind of acceptance is Teams getting for consumers?
Consumer.
No way, no.
They won't give us numbers, right? So that's always a sign that probably not a lot.
Yeah. Well, they've just begun, though. So
I know they have.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know anyone using Teams Consumer who isn't like testing it as an insider.
No,
I don't know anybody who's like, let's use Teams to have a family meeting. I've
heard some families doing it. Mine wouldn't.
I don't look. I'm not a branding expert or anything, but I feel like Skype was a good brand that they kind of squandered. And they had those issues years ago where they had to fix the back end, and then they started adding features and blah blah blah. But then Teams came around, and Teams was is a phenomenon for them. And I guess, I understand wanting to bring that over to the consumer side, except that it doesn't make any sense. And I think the better approach here would be to maintain the separate brands, Skype for consumers, and integrate Teams functionality into Skype. And the reverse where it makes sense. So people like me who happen to use both, I would very much prefer just to use Teams and have my Skype contacts in there. I'd like to integrate them into one view with my work stuff. I can handle this. I just want one thing. But I think for consumers, normal consumers, other people, they just want the one thing. And I think that one thing should be Skype and Windows. I think it's a brand people have at least heard of. And when you hear Teams, you don't think friends and family.
I know.
I think
That's what they want to change.
This is the conceptual divide.
Yeah. I like the idea of one thing also. And I think they got scared if they kept Skype as the consumer brand and Teams as the work brand, that it would send like a mixed message, right?
Yeah.
It's a pretty uphill battle. You're competing against Facebook Messenger,
I know.
WhatsApp. Those guys are completely dominant.
Yeah.
It does.
You're right. And can you take a Microsoft gave up in phone, right? The other members of that market were so dominant that Microsoft just walked away.
This is worse, if you ask me.
They walked away from music players. Music, I think we can all agree, music services, music players, not a core strength of Microsoft, not a core asset. Okay, that one makes sense. It's fine. Building Teams capabilities into Windows 11 is actually not horrible, because if you think about it, it doesn't say Teams anywhere really, right? I mean, it's just called chat, and I think that kind of thing is fine. People, and it works with, you can communicate with people who just have phone numbers. I think to a normal person, that kind of idea maybe makes some sense, because you're on your computer and this is how I talk to people. But then again, it's also, like Leo said, there's all these other messenger apps. We all use different apps on our phones.
And if people are going to look at taking something from the enterprise, they're going to take Zoom.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like this is...
That's where they lost it. Last year should have been the year of Skype. The reason it wasn't is because Microsoft was only focused on Teams.
Yeah.
And it was the year of Teams for Microsoft, no doubt about it. I mean, explosive growth. But that meant that something had to, fall by the wayside, and that something was Skype. It's too bad.
Yeah.
There's no way that Skype doesn't work as well as Teams. There's no way. As Zoom, There's no way that it couldn't have had the year that Zoom... If Teams hadn't happened, last year we would have been talking about Skype. No doubt about it.
Yeah.
It's too bad.
I know. Yeah. They could do what they did with Link and just rebrand Skype as Teams.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, this could be like Outlook.com and Outlook on the web, right? They're two separate things, separate backends, completely different products. Over time, you integrate the backends, you make them look like the same in the front. They have slightly different names. They're both Outlook. They can call them Outlook Web. It's fine. Nobody cares. And that becomes a thing. And maybe that's the future for Skype and Teams But I think as of today, if you're looking at branding and success and so forth, Teams is the one that is the golden child right now. And there's no way that Skype wins this battle.
Yep.
And that leaves consumers in a quandary because Teams doesn't make any sense for a consumer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here we are.
Well, I mean, and that, just because we say it's not possible doesn't mean Microsoft shouldn't try. Of course, they're going to try.
For sure.
And I guess they tried to buy Discord, maybe thinking that might have been
right. Yeah,
that actually could have done something had they succeeded.
Sure.
I know that was a company I really thought they were going to end up buying because I'm like, oh, that kind of works for them in a lot of places, right?
Yeah.
And then no. And now I don't think that'll ever happen because Discord's out there, getting more and more funding. So obviously they're
that's Microsoft running into a Silicon Valley culture thing that I don't think they expected all these years in, where these guys said, "Hey, thanks for all the big offers. You've proven that we can go our own. Thank you." I mean, that's a brave choice on their part, and
there's
it's
a
probably
history.
going to pay off.
Snapchat did it. There's a history.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I feel like, chat for individuals, consumers, whatever you want to call them, has walked away from Microsoft. And, Leo's, like Leo mentioned, Facebook Messenger, Snapchat. But
everybody who would do this is already using Facebook, at least in the house. Facebook just has such a strong wedge in there.
Right. Well, there's also a younger, my kids are here, as we've been discussing.
What do they use?
Right. So they use Snapchat. And iMessage, actually. And they have complained multiple times that my wife and I are on Android phones. I hate that. And I'm serious. Like, this is a big thing for them.
No, I know. Yeah.
And, at me as an old guy, I mean, I think the way I think of the world is I want to put some pictures up. We went to a beautiful place, so we had a great meal, whatever it is. I post to Instagram, Facebook, and it's this thing that sits there. And they think everything they do is ephemeral. They discuss things on Snapchat. And my daughter has been doing this for a while, and I've seen my son doing it now on this trip. There's this thing in Instagram, I think it's called Stories, and they're temporary. And you put up a photo or two or a little video or something, and your friends can see it for a little while, then it goes away. It's like a phone call. If I call Mary Jo on the phone and we talk, no one's recording it. It's not sitting there for history to evaluate later. It's gone. It
That's
just
what you
comes.
think.
Okay. There's a legal case coming I don't know about. But, for my kids, and I think for a lot of people of that generation, they don't think about this stuff like we do. I think email to me is still a big deal. I don't think they care.
Oh, they don't care about phones. They don't, phone calls. They don't care about email. It's a very different world.
Yeah, so that's a problem for Microsoft too, because I think for that generation, Microsoft is kind of old school.
Yeah,
Microsoft is IBM. It's Sears.
So is Facebook, at least. So there's that.
No, that's, by the way, that's true.
Yeah.
That's absolutely true.
Yeah.
My kids are only on Facebook because they have to be, and I don't remember I don't know if it's a school-related thing or.
Yeah, but that's Abby still uses it because it's how she stays in touch with alumni, and it's like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
they don't. They're not active.
Specific
on Facebook,
use. There's a specific use. Yeah.
I tried to explain. I literally sat them down and I said, because they don't even like me taking pictures of them. And I said, look, I'm not going to put a lot of pictures of you on Instagram. That's public. But I am going to put more pictures of you on Facebook because that's where I'm connected with people I know, friends and relatives. And they understand, but they're still looking at me like, but you're going to stop taking pictures, right? It's like, it's a different mentality.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. Anyway, Microsoft is running right into this. I don't know what you want to call it, a wave or something. And I get that they're trying. I get they should probably have to try or whatever. But putting Teams in Windows isn't gonna turn the tide for consumers. It's just not.
It's really. I find this all very interesting.
Well, here's another way to look at it.
All the companies are coming from what they perceive as their strong point, right? So Microsoft's not really going after general consumers; they're going after prosumers. People who are productivity.
But this whole Windows 11 thing, Teams hiring this guy, feels like they are trying to get into the home once again.
By the way, Microsoft is strong with the enterprise, right, and with businesses. Right. We get that.
Right.
We also live in a world where we just spent a year and a half at home, and where we have mixed work and personal in ways that we didn't want to, and it's just disgusting. And now Microsoft's value prop here is, you want more of work all the time? Well, let's bring Teams. You can put it on your phone. You can put it. I think this is something people are going to reject. I think we've had enough. I think people have had it with this integration. Microsoft used to always say, well, IT pros are people too. They go home and they watch movies, they listen to music, and why can't we reach that audience? Because when they go home, they don't want you anymore.
Yeah.
They're done with you. Your work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've kept Teams. I don't have Teams on my phone.
Yeah. Really? Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. See, I have to have Teams on my phone because, it's work. I have to be reached,
Yeah. I'm like,
for me
if
is
you really need to
24/7,
get me, I'm leaving it.
Yeah. That's healthy. That's good. I mean, that's smart. I wish I had that freedom. I don't.
Maybe that's why things like Slack and all these other business-focused things just don't. I think people who use it in the family are kind of pushing it on their family.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And by the way, that is exactly the Microsoft. If you go back to a year ago, March, remember they had that Microsoft 365 consumer event, Yusuf Mehdi and walking around this room, and that's exactly how I viewed that. Like, let's this tool you can't stand at work, let's push it on your kids. It's a really weird message, and it's unfortunate for them. It's not their fault. I mean, this, like you said, you play to your strengths, but when you're strong in work stuff, commercial, enterprise, nobody wants that stuff on Saturday morning.
God, no.
No.
Yeah.
Especially if you're making a point that you're a company that's all about work-life balance, and the old days weren't like that, but the new days are like that, right? So
there's no such thing as work-life balance anymore. It's work-life. That's your day.
Yeah.
It's tough, and like you just mentioned, you don't have Teams on your phone. You're a very healthy outlier in that regard. I think a lot of people that want to be like that and can't, and that's the terrible thing that's happened. One of the terrible things that's happened because of the pandemic. We've all been forced to make this concession, and let's face it, this is what our workplaces wanted all along. And I'm sorry, not to keep babbling. I just told my wife this story. This is so relevant. Many, many years ago, I was in Florida at a Microsoft event, TechEd or whatever. I'm walking down the hall with a coworker who had one of the earliest BlackBerries. And I'm talking to him, and I noticed he was 10 feet behind me. And I look back, he's down, he's like, tick, 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 typing on this thing. I said, what are you doing? Someone from work sent me a question. I'm answering it. I almost slapped it out of his hand. I said, dude, all you're doing is training the people you work with that you are available 24/7 immediately. Don't do that. They know you're in Florida. You can take some time to respond to this. That was like 20 years ago. I mean, that's the whole world now.
It is.
We're so available.
I know.
Anyway, Microsoft Teams is in Windows 11. It's fantastic. You should all try it.
It's the new consumer version of Windows, yes.
I was just thinking, does anyone in my family know what Teams is besides me? Probably not. No. I don't think so.
Right.
Yeah.
Do they? I think I've seen ads for Teams. Yes.
Yes, you have.
Okay.
Yes, you have.
So they're they're kind of trying to get this audience.
And the ads are emphasizing some consumer stuff as well. Right. So yeah.
It's not going to happen. But I mean, I don't blame them for trying. I'm skeptical. Little skeptical. You should have heard Steve Gibson yesterday.
Ooh, man, I bet.
Ooh, was he mad?
So the previous segment, you said this must be a Mary Jo headline, and this is my headline, but it's of course a riff on Mary Jo's headline, which is if at first you don't succeed, in this case at fixing printing, you just keep trying.
Just keep patching.
Literally
print again.
7 days ago, Microsoft said explicitly, "We think we have solved this problem." Yeah. Well, if you've been around for a while, you won't be surprised to discover they have not fixed this problem.
Well, and the thing that made Steve very upset was a security researcher said, I reported this vulnerability in December of last year. Microsoft knew about it and basically said, I'm not going to fix it till there's a 0 day. It sure looks like that anyway. And then when there's 0 days, because there is now ransomware using these printer spooler exploits.
Right.
When there's 0, we better fix it now. And it made Steve mad. He said Steve's impression is that Microsoft. I'm just going to say this and I'll stop talking.
Yeah.
Microsoft has decided, instead of just saying we got to fix every severe flaw as they come along, they're making a business decision that we don't need to fix this yet.
This is like implementing a safety device in a car. The insurance company does math on whether it makes more sense to pay the claims.
Precisely.
So I was going to, it's hard to know exactly the blame. Google, for example, has made a habit of exposing Microsoft vulnerabilities when Microsoft doesn't respond to the complaint within 30 days or 90 days.
Yeah.
Now, I kind of call out Google for that behavior because I think it's slightly irresponsible because you're now letting hackers know where to look for something or whatever. But on the other hand, I think their complaint is similar to what Steve is saying, which is Microsoft did know about this months ago.
Yeah. It's reasonable to give them a certain amount of time to fix it, but also security researchers have decided after 3 months, if they don't fix it, we need to reveal it because people will have found it by then.
Yeah.
Right.
So if if they're not going to fix it, we have to let people know. Yeah.
Why wouldn't you just stick it into a patch Tuesday?
So that's a question. Why doesn't? Do they have so many fixes that they can only?
When you talk to the people from the Microsoft security response team, they are the most capable and intelligent and sophisticated
I don't think they're
minds
evil.
imaginable.
No.
Right.
No.
And so it's really hard to understand how and why this happens. It's like you think you know somebody, and then 20 years later you're like, oh, you're a serial killer. Interesting. It's just unexpected, and I just don't even know how to respond to this. You want that part of this company to be the most responsible there is.
Yep.
But this seems to happen. I don't mean a lot. It happens from time to time, and it's confusing. And I don't have an answer. I don't know.
But okay, I have a question for both of you because you will have the history on this more than I do. But I've seen a lot of people just say printing in Windows has always been a huge security hole, like always has been, and it's not just now. And Microsoft's known this all along, and they just have never fixed it. And then I've seen other people say this new universal print service that they've got coming will help alleviate this issue, right? So I don't have enough history about this to know if the first part is true or not.
Yeah, I don't either, actually. I think it goes back to what Leo said. It's a risk assessment. I think when you look at the security surface of Windows, and they have all kinds of telemetry, they can see where people are probing and where the big problems are. And I think they've just decided that, and I'm just guessing here, they have to have looked at printing and thought, well, this is just not a big target. But the problem is once you go through all the big targets, that becomes the big target, right? Yeah. It's just shifting. It's like a Homeland Security. Once you found the shoe bomber, no one's doing shoe bombs anymore. We've moved on to the next thing.
Right.
Security needs to be proactive, not reactive. It's like the T-Mobile thing, right? Thank you for giving me 2 free years of, an identity threat protection. It would have been better if you protected the thing in the beginning and it never happened.
Right.
I don't know. I just don't know what to say to this. I don't know.
By the way, is that what T-Mobile's doing? They finally admitted that they got a massive hack.
When it's everything. It's names, addresses, social security number, credit card numbers, everything.
Driver's license, address, everything.
Yep, the whole thing. Everything you need.
And so they admit it now. Wow. That is as bad as it can be.
It is literally as bad as
it's all the credit, basically the credit applications for people.
It's even people who applied to become a T-Mobile customer and then didn't do it.
Yeah.
Are part of this group.
Yeah, well, they have a,
I mean, it
makes me nervous. When you apply, my nephew's is trying to rent an apartment in New York City, and I said I'd be the guarantor. And you have to send them your social, everything. Yep. And I don't know who this company, I don't know them from Adam, but they now have everything there is to know about me. Are they secure? I don't know.
Yep.
Yeah.
You would presume a company like T-Mobile, owned by Deutsche Telekom, would be.
You tend to trust T-Mobile than Bob's Telecom Service, from Manhattan or whatever.
So frustrating.
So as far as printing goes, I guess the advice here is don't print. Please don't print. And, turn off the print spooler again. Remember that advice we had back in June? We're right back at it. It's kind of like COVID. We thought it was done, and here it is again.
Yeah.
It's fun. Well, I wish there was better news.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No. Everybody wanted me to ask you about Steve's rant because he ranted. I mean,
Steve obviously knows more about this than I ever will, or will ever care to either, for that matter. But I'm just confused by this because, like I said, from a high level, I look at Microsoft and it's like when we talked about Windows in the Terry Myerson days. The Azure team had control of the kernel. That always made sense to me. Those were the adults. And then the children had control of the UI, and that made sense to me because they were young, fresh out of college, and blah, 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 whatever. That's fine. This part of Microsoft, to me, is the adult side, and it's the side that should be doing the right thing, and I expect them to, and I think they do most of the time. It's confusing when something like this happens. I literally have I don't even know what to think. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Did you read Steven Sinofsky's story of Clippy?
No.
Oh, you got to read this. This is not in your notes, but I had to throw this in.
Okay.
I know you're not big fans of
We're not
Sinofsky.
best friends.
No.
Yeah.
The title.
We've done the roller coaster with Steve Sinofsky.
The title of this is it's from his hardcoresoftware.learnbyshipping.com. Is chapter 42, Clippy, the effing clown.
So I'll just to interject real quick, the fact that he has gotten a Clippy and it's chapter 42 is pretty much
I'll tell you something.
the first thing you need to know about Mr. Sinofsky. Can't get to the point.
Yeah, he likes. But he has. I don't know where he got it. He has a transcript of a interaction with Bill Gates talking about Clippy that I think you would enjoy.
Okay. Well, look, I've always known I'm going to have to eventually go and read this because I'm going to have to debunk it, and that will be a 6-month project that will ruin my life. But I will get to this.
Sinofsky,
I will say, by the way...
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I'll read it, and then you can... Sinofsky writes, in early discussions, we attempted to explain how we had learned from the abysmal failure of Microsoft Bob and that we had a plan. At one point, the conversation turned from stepping through a complex task in Excel to Bill Gates bringing us to tears and playing back what he heard. There were both tears of joy and tears of pain. It went something like this. Demo. The assistant will then appear and offer each step and sequence to create a chart as the user interface does today, but it'll be more friendly and approachable and have easy access to help content. Bill. So when I want to create a chart, the clown will pop up and say, I'm here to help. And no, not clown, Bill, assistant. The clown pops up, and then I'm like clicking on the clown and saying, clown, next, clown, next, or something like that to create a chart. The assistant is just a more approachable and helpful version of the same number of clicks and steps you always had. Next, and pretty soon, I just want the effing clown to get out of the way.
By the way, so did everyone else.
Bill was right.
Yep. I sat in the front row at the Office 2003 launch where they killed Clippy, and the person sitting next to me was Jeff Bezos.
Oh, my God.
Yep. He still had hair. And there was some kind of Amazon integration in Office. Who knows what it was. But that's when, what was that? Gilbert Gottfried did the voice of Clippy.
Oh, God.
Remember?
You couldn't make Clippy more annoying. Oh, yeah, we can.
Well, you
Hold
thought,
my beer.
you thought so.
Hold my beer.
And then that Clippy outfit was worn years later by Brad Sams at Microsoft.
Ain't me. So Bill, he's writing, often had these routines or short skits he would play out over and over. If you were the target, it was painful the first couple of times, and it was for show for other attendees. Then you had to assert yourself. This is one of those. Through the entire rise and ultimate fall of the idea of an animated character or agent, which he referred to as a clown, this pattern, complete with the escalating, high-pitched, frustrated Bill G voice, would make an appearance. I lost track of how many times he ridiculed the feature this way.
So, by the way, this is probably a month or so ago, but I came across a Charlie Rose? Yeah, Charlie Rose interview with Bill Gates in, I want to say, 1996 or 7, somewhere in there, right around the whole internet shift time frame. And there's a lot of stuff not to like about Bill Gates. Obviously, there's some problems there. But listening to him predict the future accurately, by the way, listening to how honed in he was on every single thing the company was doing, where they were going, where each product was going. I will say this. For all of that guy's problems,
he was smart.
He saw Clippy exactly correctly.
He was right.
The guy writing
clown.
this book is the one who pushed it through and made it happen.
Yep.
They added it to Windows. It was a disaster.
Yep.
Gates was right about this from day one. I don't think that's the point of chapter 42 or whatever you said it was, but that is literally the point of chapter 42, right? I was wrong again.
By the way, another little insight. The name of the internal implementation of the assistant is TFC for the effing clown.
That's awesome.
That is good.
And everyone knows, of course, that his now ex-wife was the person who shepherded Microsoft Bob.
It's worth reading this because there is a clip from a newspaper, the Washington Post, showing Bill Gates introducing Bob, and in the front row, Melinda French.
Yep.
She was already married to him at that time. This is from CES in 1995.
Yeah.
Microsoft
Well,
introduces Bob, its new electric buddy.
People forget this too. This came out right around the same time as Windows 95, maybe right after Windows 95, and it was a Windows 3.1 app. It's everything about this product was well-intentioned and ill-fated, I think.
Yeah, and of course, Sinofsky being Sinofsky, he makes a impassioned plea for why this was a good idea, and it was,
I'm sure it was. Yeah.
But,
they can't give up on the assistant idea, right?
No.
Because it was the red dog in Bob, then it was Clippy, now it's Cortana, right? They really want to make it work.
It was inspired by this book by Byron Reeves and Clifford Nass called The Media Equation. Now, this is the 90s, remember, how people treat computers, television, and new media like real people and places. And so that, they had read this book and really felt like this you had to have an assistant to do this. Here's the picture of...
in so many ways, it's funny how Microsoft was kind of onto a good idea, but the implementation was wrong. And of course, it wasn't possible at that time to do the voice-based assistants that we have now. But when Amazon came along with their thing and Google with their thing and Microsoft with their thing, by that point, I think this technology had evolved where giving a directive by voice makes a certain amount of sense. Having a conversation that's context aware, where the thing asks you qualifying questions to make sure it's doing the right thing, is in fact a great idea. And a lot of people use that very effectively. But that's, what is that? We're talking almost 25 years later or whatever. I mean, it takes a long time. So the cartoon dog that doesn't do anything is stupid. But the voice stuff, for some people, I don't really use it that much, but it makes computing accessible.
Right.
And that's always a good thing. But, this was Microsoft, I think, being a little ahead of the curve and the typical unsophisticated implementation, unfortunately.
I think it actually relates back to our conversation about Teams, which is Windows was always popular with enthusiasts, people who knew how to use computers. But Microsoft was never satisfied with that, and they always wanted to get families and kids in the home.
Yeah.
They kind of backed off, but for years in the 90s, it was all about home use. Remember when Microsoft built the house in the parking lot at Comdex?
Oh, yeah, at CS, or Comdex, yeah. So,
and they had it on campus, too. They have those
that's right, the smart house,
homes of the
that's
future.
right.
Well, now Apple does, by the way, and all of Apple's latest events, they've had a house. It's like a dollhouse. It has one wall is open.
Apple has absolutely learned from Microsoft's mistakes, because the things we just talked about at the top of the show are all end results of that thinking, where we have to reach this other audience. And the way that Microsoft decided to do that was just to make it possible to do things in multiple ways. These people, and a normal Excel user will want to use just Excel the way it's meant to be used.
Right.
A beginner user will want a cute little puppy that shows you how stuff works.
I see you're making a spreadsheet. Can I help?
Right. Yeah. And, ultimately what Apple decided, for good, bad, or indifference, was no, there's going to be one way. We're either going to do it or we're not going to do it. And when we do it, there's going to be one way. And I think...
the problem was a lot of us enthusiasts were like, Bill, I don't get the clown out of my face. I don't need it. I don't want it. We didn't really, by the way, you could turn it off even if the dog looked sad when he walked away. You could turn it off.
So that's that goes back to probably our first show. Windows XP was still current, and that was the thing. Windows XP Professional. You're using it where you signed into a domain. You bring up File Explorer, or Windows Explorer, whatever we called it in those days, and there was a stupid little dog in the corner for search. What is that thing doing there?
Yeah.
And yeah, you're right. You could turn it away, turn it off. It doesn't turn off. It looks sad. It cries. It walks away. Looks over his shoulders. He's walking by. What do you have to insult me on the way out the door? Just, come on. That's just terrible.
Let's take a break because that IKEA ain't going to assemble itself.
That's exactly.
While they're putting it together.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. We will talk about worldwide technology and Dell Technologies, two partners made in heaven. Worldwide Technology is at the front of innovation, working with clients all over the world to help transform their businesses. They're a great partner because they believe in and love business. They understand it. Their executives are immersed in it. And so the very first thing WWT will do is talk to you about your business goals, your strategies, what you're trying to accomplish. They're not the kind of technologists who come in there and say, we're going to do everything. We've got it all figured out. Just get out of the way. It's all. No, they work with you. Partnership. And that's huge. It's one of the reasons Worldwide Technology created, and it's been, I think, more than 10 years ago now, the Advanced Technology Center. And over the years, it's gone from one building to 2 to 3. I think it's in 4 now. $500 million of the technologies from the leading OEMs. And why do they build that? Why do they put that in there? Because if they're going to recommend something, if they're going to integrate something, if they're going to sell you something, they need to know it. Their engineers use it to spin up proofs of concept, to test, to learn. It's actually a really great way for them to do this. And I think a couple of years ago, they realized, our customers could benefit from this too. They've spent a number of years putting this together, and now they call it Lab as a Service. You can get into the ATC yourself, and you don't have to go to St. Louis to do it. You can do it from anywhere in the world, any time of the day or night. This is such a cool thing. The Advanced Technology Center is there for you too. On-demand and schedulable labs like, I'll give you some examples. Dell's VX Rail, Cyber Recover Solutions, Dell's Power Store, Unity, PowerMax. We saw those PowerMaxes when we were there. They are pretty in that rack. Data Protection Central, IDPA. I mean, if you're interested in storage, these labs represent the latest and greatest in primary storage. But it's not just Dell, it's everybody. That's what's amazing about this. And including stuff that you're using so you can see how it will integrate with what you're doing already. Other labs in the ATC represent the newest advances in multi-cloud architecture. That's hot right now. Security is always going to be important. Networking, primary and secondary storage, even software-driven things like data analytics and AI and DevOps. Everything that you would be interested in enterprise, you can try. And by the way, not just the labs. You also get expert insights, technical articles. There's demonstration videos. There's white papers. This is an amazing resource for you, and it's available free right now. WWT's engineers that use this to cut evaluation time from months to weeks, so can you. What's great is in partnership with them, hand in hand with them. So it's not only a physical lab space. By the way, we went out there in March to see it, and I was blown away. Talked to the engineers. I said, you have the best job in the world. They said, you bet we do. They just love being able to try all this stuff. They had a thing there. It was so cool. It was like a Pelican case with some hardware in it. I said, what's that? They said, that's kind of like a museum piece for us. We were designing for the DoD backpack mesh network systems for the troops in the field. So as they deployed into the field, they would expand the network with these little backpack systems. It was really fascinating. It's the kind of thing WWT does. And while you're there at the ATC, don't forget to check out WWT's events and communities. There's lots of things going on. It is jam-packed with information, chances to learn about technology trends, hear about the latest research and insights from their experts. We did a panel there. We're really looking forward to getting a chance to go back out again. As soon as we can travel, we will. But you don't have to travel. The ATC is there online for you to use anytime, anywhere. Whatever your business needs, But this is a bottom line. WWT can deliver scalable, tried and tested, tailored solutions because they know how to bring strategy and execution together to make this exciting, challenging, sometimes scary new world of technology happen. But if you're in business, you need this stuff. You also need a partner like WWT. To learn more about WWT, the Advanced Technology Center, to get access to all these great free resources, visit wwt.com/twit. You can create a free account right there on the ATC platform. Please use that address so they know you saw it here. They pay attention to that. Believe me, all our advertisers do, and it really helps us when you go to those special addresses. It's kind of a signal to them. Oh, they heard it on Windows Weekly. wwt.com/twit. Really nice to be partners with WWT. They're great folks. And if you ask, they might even help you assemble your IKEA stuff. I say that because they have.
I got to tell you, I bet the entire room or suites or whatever they are will be completely assembled today.
Sure.
I bet they get through the entire thing. There are couches, tables,
awesome.
Lamps, chairs. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's amazing.
It was all gone. It was the size of a truck, and then it was gone.
That's good. That's
Industrious.
good. Is it so? Your Airbnb is an apartment in an apartment building? Is that what it is?
Yeah, it's a very thin apartment building on the street. 2 windows wide and 6 floors tall.
Oh, interesting.
And almost all of them are Airbnbs. And
probably one owner,
they have,
right?
They have laundry and they have other facilities or whatever. But the funny thing is, we hear the guys upstairs sometimes, but for obviously now we can hear them. They're constructing, but
right.
But they must have brought those boxes upstairs very early in the morning because we walked out the door at 8 and we were gone.
And
we didn't hear
kind of amazing.
I don't know how they did it.
It's kind of amazing.
Didn't hear a thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry, I got all distracted. All distracted.
Keep waiting for someone to fall through.
So, big contract. So Jedi was $10 billion. Well, it wasn't the only contract out there. Amazon just got a different $10 billion cloud contract from the NSA.
I know.
Microsoft's not happy.
No, they're not happy. And is anyone surprised? After that whole back and forth over Jedi where Microsoft actually won, and then in the end they pulled the contract. So, when everyone found out in July, well, I shouldn't say everyone, when the cloud vendors found out in July, there was this, quote, secret cloud computing contract that the NSA had put out to bid, and Microsoft saw that Amazon won the $10 billion contract. What do you think they did? They're pulling a little Amazon in here, right? They're going to protest it, and they're hoping to tie it up probably the way that Jedi got tied up. So this is a contract that's codenamed Wild and Stormy.
Ooh.
Look at those NSA guys with those code names.
That's a cocktail name, isn't it?
That was
It
the
is.
Dark and Stormy.
Dark
Oh,
and
I'm
Stormy.
sorry. Okay.
Yeah. Wild and Stormy. This is since it's secret, we think it's a contract about involving NSA trying to consolidate all the data that it has in multiple repositories into a single
that Sex on the
data
Beach server
lake.
they've been using.
Exactly.
And the fuzzy naval server. They're going to replace that with
Right?
Wild and Stormy. I think that's
Let's
the
go
right
with
move.
Wild and
Yeah,
Stormy.
I think
That's a
so.
better
Somewhere there's an agent
cocktail.
they're onto us.
Yeah, so Microsoft has officially filed a complaint, and the GAO says they will make a decision about Microsoft's complaint October 29th. So then, it's going to go back and forth. We'll see.
I'm starting to wonder if the little pissing match between these two companies is actually getting in the way of national security at this point.
Yep.
Yeah, a lot of people are wondering this. They're like, okay, that's great. But so meanwhile, no one's doing anything to modernize their data facilities because it's all tied up.
Don't we need to do this? Is this not urgent?
Yeah.
Right.
I know, right? Yeah. So we'll see what happens. This could go a lot of different ways, but it seems like, although we don't know details because it's a secret contract, maybe it was another one of these single supplier win kind of thing like Jedi was. So, everybody else is going to be mad when the single supplier for a big $10 billion contract gets announced.
Yeah.
So far, Oracle's not protesting it, surprisingly, because they protest everything too. But
Right.
Not yet, I guess. Yeah.
Wow. All right. Well, it's a nice contract. I mean, that's as big as Jedi was.
It is.
Yep.
It's a big deal.
Yeah.
Is it over 10 years too, or is it? Must be.
it's not
I'm
clear.
not
Must be.
sure.
Yeah, it must be.
A lot of this
there
is
aren't a lot
not
of
public
details.
because it's NSA.
Yeah, it's
right?
NSA. I'm surprised we even know about
Right.
this.
Right.
I know. Yep. Yep.
Amazon is, however, on a roll.
Bezos leaving was the best thing that ever happened.
Yeah, they're now. I saw this bigger than Walmart.
So and I have to say, when you hear this sentence, Amazon is now bigger than Walmart, meaning as a retailer. What was the first thing that went through my mind was that they're not already bigger than Walmart?
Yeah, you would think, but Walmart. You got to remember, Walmart is huge.
Yeah, this is pure retail sales. And the funny thing, not funny, but the interesting thing here, maybe aside from the fact that Amazon already wasn't bigger, because Amazon obviously has other parts of the company like AWS, which probably make it bigger than.
Oh yeah. It's not the company size; it's just how much revenue.
The retail business. Yeah.
People spent 610. Get ready for this. You're going to pass out. We're talking about a $10 billion contract. Over the last 12 months, ending in June, during COVID, $610 billion on Amazon.
Right.
Oh, man.
Now, the thing they're not saying is they also made a profit of $1,700. So it's kind of a high margin business.
We're not
low
counting
margin
profit.
The revenues.
Walmart $566 billion. So both are massive.
But both are also smaller than Alibaba, right? Which is the Chinese-based retailer, e-commerce giant. And neither company, Amazon nor Walmart, has been able to make much of a foothold for themselves in China because obviously China is a different kind of market. But it's interesting. It's funny that there's this whole planet of people that we don't really kind of think about a lot here in the West. There are more of them. They're just more, and they have their own things. And where everyone has heard of Amazon, everyone knows about Walmart, and they just don't matter.
We'll go back to your childhood. Remember, Sears was the big retailer for years.
That's right. And that's actually the little factoid I pulled into my article was the company that Walmart surpassed many years ago to become the biggest retailer was Sears. Yeah. And by the way, Sears still exists in Mexico. They're everywhere. No, they in front of the most beautiful building in Mexico City is called Bellas Artes. The building right in front of it, which towers over it, is Sears.
Wow. Wow.
Yep. If you want a beautiful view of that, go to the Sears Terrace.
Sears Tower, yeah. So I think, though, that really why this is an interesting story is it is the ascendancy now of online shopping over brick and mortar. Right. Yeah. I mean, it's finally happened, right?
Well, it's online shopping of physical goods, all right? So, Walmart obviously has retail stores, which people go to. Walmart has electronic stuff as well, which I'm sure is a big business. But, the ability just to bring up a page and say, I want this thing today, tomorrow, and the next day at the latest is Amazon's greatest strength, and it's also the thing that's clogging all of our highways, by the way. So, God help you if you have to drive to Boston from Philadelphia like I do all the time. It's a nightmare, and it's all Amazon trucks with big smiley faces.
Everywhere. Yeah.
Yep.
And this includes third-party sales on Amazon. So it isn't exactly apples to apples, but they're getting some cut of all of those sales. So, yeah.
Of course. They're not doing this out of the goodness of their hearts.
Right.
You know who was bigger than Sears before Sears in the 40s?
Oh, boy.
A&P.
Oh, A&P.
The grocery chain. Remember A&P?
I was going to say, I think of that as a grocery chain. Okay.
Yeah. And it was only on the East Coast. We didn't have A&P out here. I remember, though, when I lived in Rhode Island.
I was just trying to explain this to my son, how we had regional things back in the day. That if you...
Piggly Wiggly or... Yeah,
you couldn't get seafood in the middle of the country. Today, you could go to Des Moines and have the best sushi you've ever had, probably.
No. I always said, never eat sushi in Vegas. They're in a desert. And you know what?
Yep.
Best sushi in the world.
No problem at all. Yep. Yeah, I told, in fact, I had Corona for the first time in 1985. No one had ever heard of Corona.
Yes.
Someone brought it up to New Mexico from Mexico, and I said, this is just beer. I don't understand.
When I was a kid, the guys would drive to Colorado, fill a truck full of Coors, and drive it out here. And it was like a big deal. They're going to be in the parking lot on Thursday with a Coors truck and everybody, because you couldn't get Coors out here.
In Boston, it was Sam Adams. And of course, depending on where you are, your Sam Adams beer is coming from Cleveland.
Yeah, I know.
It's coming from Georgia. It's,
I know. Well, we did the same thing with White Castle sliders. They'd pull up a truck in the parking lot. Now you can get them fresh and delicious right from the store.
I don't know, fresh. You can get them.
A&P, according to the New York Times, was so big in the 40s that they actually were facing antitrust regulation. That's how dominant they were.
So, and I'm sorry, I'm just thinking 40 years ago, I was driving out in the middle of New Mexico with my father, and we drove through a little dusty town with one crossroad, and there was a little phone booth looking thing that had Sears logo on it. And I said, "What's that?" And he said, "Oh, there's a Sears catalog in there." And you go through the Sears catalog, you call them on the phone, and they deliver it to a nearby building. And then when it comes, they call you, and then you go pick it up.
That
was the internet in the 1980s.
Yeah, it was that was the huge innovation, was the Sears and Roebuck catalog, which allowed people in the West, in the frontier, to get stuff shipped to them. So it's all analogous, really.
The holiday catalog was like the biggest event of the year for the kids. That was big stuff. That was where you picked out what you were going to get for Christmas.
I used to think that people who were born in 1900 saw more change in their in their 70 or 80 years, going from no human air travel
rockets
to rockets and landing on the moon,
nuclear power, and
but now I'm starting to think maybe the last 70 or 80 years have been a big change for us too.
Yeah,
In fact,
it's
just
all
the last
TikTok
30.
based, is what it is.
It's all because of TikTok. I think it's the TikTok. What would Grandma have thought if she'd seen TikTok? I don't know. She'd probably love it.
Yeah,
but she wouldn't understand it necessarily. All right, we are getting ready to take questions for from the chats. So IRC, Discord, if you are in the Discord, if you're a member of Club Twit, and why aren't you if you're not? If you're a member of Club Twit, go on in there. We've got a couple people with their hands raised. We're going to do the Xbox segment, but raise your hand if you have a question for Paul and Mary Jo. I like doing it in the Discord stage because then we can hear your audio, but we'll also take questions from IRC. So everybody, we got 3 people already in line ready to talk. But first, Mary Jo's favorite segment.
I can't wait.
It's Xbox time, kids.
I kid, but
Did you bring an Xbox to Mexico with you?
No.
Yeah.
And, I got to be honest. I'll talk about that. Actually, that comes up too. So we'll get to that. That's going to be back in the books.
Okay.
I did not bring anything with me. I semi-regret it.
I'm so bored.
Yeah, it's terrible here. The food is awful. Nothing to do. So people are familiar with Xbox Game Pass. They know that it works on PC, it works on console. There's an ultimate version that works on both and gives you the cloud game streaming service. And most people probably are also familiar with the fact that typically twice a month, Microsoft will announce the dump of games that are coming to those services for the next 2 weeks. So that announcement came the other day. And the second half of August is looking amazing. So Need for Speed Heat, Star Wars Battlefront 2, coming to cloud gaming, by the way. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, also coming to cloud gaming. Games. What is it called? Cloud gaming. I think it is called cloud gaming. These names are terrible. But the Psychonauts 2, huge release, coming to cloud, console, and PC. But the strangest and kind of, in some ways, most wonderful game is on August 26th, Myst, the original Myst.
What?
And I think Myst might have been the first big game to require a CD, if I'm not mistaken, coming to cloud, console, and PC through Xbox Game Pass.
Oh, that's interesting.
Service, yeah.
Updated, I presume, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's a whole post about how they did all the graphics over, and it looks beautiful. I'm curious I suspect this is not going to stand the test of time, but I am curious to check that one out. So that is happening. And that's cool. So there you go. This is also just kind of this is something I noticed immediately. I'm sure I wrote about it in my review, but it was weird to me that when the Xbox Series S and especially the X launched last fall, that the Xbox dashboard is not high res, and it's not HDR either, but that's whatever. And what that means is if you have a display that kind of pops up a little notification that tells you what's going on with the resolution and the HDR-ness of your display, you will notice on the Xbox Series S and X that it switches back and forth between low res and high res as you go between the dashboard and games. And I always thought that was kind of weird. Like, surely these new consoles are capable of running the dashboard at a higher resolution. So Xbox, like Windows, has an insider program, and in the what is essentially the alpha ring, they are now testing a high-resolution dashboard only for the Xbox Series X. Some people have reported it as being 4K. However, Microsoft has only said it is an increased resolution. I'm not in front of my console. Obviously, I'm gone. I believe the Xbox dashboard today is 1080p. It might even be lower res on older consoles like Xbox One, but I think on Xbox S and X, Series X and S, it is 1080p. So it will either be 1440p or 4K. Those are the two resolutions that they support. So we'll see what happens. But they're finally going to make the dashboard match what's capable in games. Would HDR make sense for the dashboard? Maybe not, but they're not. That's not part of it. But anyway, that's coming. So I think given the way things go with schedule and whatnot, it's a lock that we'll see this before the end of the year. It could be a month or two, at the quickest. So we'll see what happens there. And just as Leo, I have a vague memory that you started playing this game when it first came out, but Microsoft Rare launched, I should say, an Xbox exclusive, Sea of Thieves.
Oh yeah,
about 3.5 years ago.
Yeah,
and my understanding, I never really played. This isn't my kind of game, but my understanding is when it first launched, it was a little bit like No Man's Sky in that it was kind of an empty world.
Yes, that's right.
People were you'd kind of sail around trying to.
Wasn't a lot of fun.
Or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, Microsoft has done this with a few first-party games where they continually update the game with new updates over time, and they've done this with Sea of Thieves, and it's been kind of amazing how long this has gone on because it flies in the face of the way most video games are, which is kind of a one and done deal where, a new Call of Duty will come out. They might update it for the first year. And then there's a new Call of Duty that comes out and we kind of forget about the old one, right?
I think it's a little different for these massively multiplayer online games because like World of Warcraft, they want you to play for years. Yeah. And the only way they're going to keep you playing that game is by adding content.
So that's what they've done. And, if you're a fan of this type of game or this game in particular, you got to give a little credit to Microsoft and Rare.
It's gotten much better. As, by the way, as No Man's Sky. Same thing.
Right. So they recently hit an all-time high on active daily users or gamers or whatever of 4.8 million people.
Wow.
And they credit the release of an update that came out in June, which is called A Pirate's Life. It added new levels and new weapons and new whatever. But the big thing was the addition of Johnny Depp's character from the Pirates of the Caribbean.
Disney always wins. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's just been the biggest thing in the world. And
it's amazing.
Yeah, there it is. So, I'm not really into this game, or this kind of game, and it's not Johnny Depp. It's a Johnny Depp sound alike, and to me, he sounds exactly like him. And I guess they also use that actor's stunt double from the movies to do the character animations.
Oh, that's neat.
Yeah, so it's got that, and he's not just like a background character. He actually goes with you on adventures and stuff, and you interact, and he does things like that. So, anyway, if you're into that kind of game, there it is. Last thing I wanted to mention, and I thought about this just as the show was starting, and this is disappointing to me because I'm flying tomorrow. Tomorrow is actually going to be a big day for video games. Activision is going to announce the new Call of Duty, Vanguard, which is a World War II game, because obviously they've run out of ideas, which is fine. I'm actually I'm looking forward to something different anyway. But the other big thing that's happening tomorrow is Quakecon is coming back, and Quakecon is an annual gamer conference that they have that it started back in 95 or 96 when Quake first came out. They've had it almost every year since. It's type of thing where people actually bring their computers there and they all game together and all that. And that's cool. But the big news, and this has been leaked, they haven't officially announced this, is that one of the things they're going to announce tomorrow is a remake of the original Quake, which I'm particularly excited about because I love Quake and I probably have played through that single player campaign 20 times. I mean, on different difficulty levels and finding secrets. It's an awesome game. And if it is a true remake and not a reimagining like the Doom games, I'll be particularly excited. I hope that's what this is. My understanding is that is what it is. So if you care about this stuff, stay tuned. Thursday, August 19th.
Tomorrow's.
Could be a big day.
I just want to put in a plug for my game, Valheim. They just announced they've sold since February. What did you say Sea of Thieves was? 4 million?
Well, this is 4.8 million active gamers.
Oh, players online.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Valheim's not as big as that, but they have sold 7.9 million copies.
Yeah, that's
in pre-release. They're only charging $20. So But
there was
that adds up.
a Sea of Thieves sales milestone from a couple of years ago. It was probably just 1 million or something. I don't remember.
Yeah.
But
That's Valheim's an indie game, so it's really kind of a surprise.
Yeah, that's amazing.
It's done so well. It's very interesting to me.
Yep.
Lots of fun. All right, Mary Jo, we're going to wake you up. Shh. we're all done, Mary Jo. We can now take questions from the crowd. So if you are in Discord, raise your hand. I'm going to invite you all up to speak, those of you who have. If you're in IRC, you could just say a question for Paul or a question for Mary Jo. In fact, Wisdom 327 says, will Microsoft ever make a standalone virtual reality headset like the Oculus Quest 2? Will they ever turn HoloLens, I guess, into a consumer product?
They say they will.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. But they call it mixed reality, so it wouldn't necessarily be VR.
Well,
metaverse, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah,
every buzzword, yeah.
Everybody wants to be in the metaverse.
Exactly.
Here's the problem, though. They're a successful video game platform. Well, Xbox. They have no plans for VR on Xbox, and they never did it for Xbox One. They say they're not doing it for Xbox Series,
which is funny because Sony did pretty well, I think, with PlayStation VR,
and they've already announced an updated version coming to PS5 next year. Yeah. I don't know.
Let's go to the Discord, and Kev Brewer is on the horn. Hello, Kev.
Hello, guys. How are you?
Great. Welcome.
Good. Question. Do you think Microsoft will ever get around to creating a photo app for mobile?
No. And but let me ask you a question. Like, what would that entail?
So Google, for instance, with Google Photos, it leverages Google Drive, and Apple with Apple's Photos leverages iCloud. Microsoft with OneDrive would. I get where you're coming from, Kev. This would be a pretty sensible app, right?
But there is a OneDrive app. So OneDrive allows you to. But I guess the question though is, what are you looking for from a mobile photo app that Microsoft would do?
Well, I would think they would have some consumer-facing features like instant selfie and uploads, something that's got something that the consumer wants to play with. I'm just following on the logic we talked about earlier with the pointing to the consumer's market. Right. And Microsoft is so corporatized in their mindset, and their mechanical minds don't actually think about what people actually connect with. And it's not the technology, it's what it feels or sounds or does. It's that they need to engage with, and that's where you find your features. Burying them away, putting them with strange names, it's not helpful or joking. So that's who they're to reach.
I agree with you 100%. I mentioned the Photos app at the top of the show and how there's a video editor that almost no one knows exists, and that thing should be a separate app, and et cetera, et cetera. So that's the type of thing I'd like to see from a Microsoft photo app on mobile, is the ability on mobile to edit, create a photo slideshow and post it as a video, or edit videos, and then, if you look at what Google Photos does, they also have things like, photo books, which I think is a little goofy or whatever. But yeah, I think that why doesn't Microsoft have a movies and TV app that runs on Android and iOS? So the movies that you purchase from Microsoft, you can play on your iPad or your phone or whatever. These all seem like obvious things to do. And here we are. I mean, how many years into this are we? We don't see either one of those things.
Yeah.
Well, let's just hope this new guy who's taking over the consumer division might have a think about how he's going to
That's a good point, actually. Yeah. Right. And that's where the consumers are. They're on phones. They're not on Windows. So they should be doing that. Yeah. No, I agree with you.
So I'll give you a little bit of insight from something that happened this week. So when Microsoft appointed this guy from Uber to head up Teams Consumer and Skype, Jeff Teeper, who's his boss, who runs Microsoft 365, I think, management or something, he said he listed all the things that they consider very important consumer properties, and OneDrive was one of them. So maybe they're thinking about how to put a more consumery face on OneDrive. Maybe they are.
They should integrate with all of the mobile apps that people use. You should be able to make a video for TikTok in a Microsoft photo or video app, and But
I don't see OneDrive in my mindset is photo storage, is document storage. Photos for photo apps, that's a separate thing. As a consumer mindset, that's how I connect it. That's the thing.
Listen, they're busy putting Teams on Windows, so they can't really think about it.
They've got more important things to do.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kev. Great to hear from you. Take care. Let's say hello to Trevor. I'm going to unmute you, Trevor. Let's see. I guess, there we go. Go ahead, Trevor.
Hey, everyone. After years listening to the show, it's an honor to speak with you three.
Nice.
Well worth the subscription.
Where are you calling from?
From Ottawa, Canada.
Love it.
So
where winter is finally ended, I believe.
And it's just beginning next week, so it's kind of a problem.
That's a brief interregnum. What can we do for you, Trevor?
I was curious. I'm a designer. I'm a creative, so that's kind of my bent with devices and how they're used. I see with the Surface Duo, Surface Duo 2, Galaxy Fold, the new one that just got announced, perhaps the Neo and Future. It seems that folding devices, depending on your take on it, seem to be staying around. Of course, and even if you want to consider the flat version of it, the iPad with the Apple Pencil is huge. So I'm kind of curious if through an app, Microsoft might want to try to achieve some of the vision of what the Courier was. And could it be just
that's interesting.
Some improvements to OneNote being incredibly capable, if not super pen / fluid when using it. Would they have any desire in kind of sparking consumer interest with a really compelling Courier app that could be sent around and possibly ported if using the Android version in Windows 11?
Right. I kind of feel like, unfortunately or fortunately, OneDrive is that app, and I don't know. We talked about OneDrive last week, right? Was that and the issues with going back and forth. You mean
OneNote, right? You're saying OneDrive, but you mean OneNote, right?
Sorry. I meant OneNote. Sorry.
Yeah.
Folding devices clearly makes sense because it's that all-in-one device that you can put in your pocket and it opens up and then you can actually see the map or the movie or the game or whatever you're doing. And the use case there makes sense to me. The two-screen thing to me doesn't make as much sense, but whatever. I think we're all headed toward the same goal. So, whether it's a laptop-size thing or a phone-size thing that becomes a mini tablet. Those make sense. I think the real way to get to what Courier would have been is to make sure that all of the apps that Microsoft or whoever makes are aware of those form factors. And we saw a little bit of that in the Samsung announcement with Teams and Outlook adapting to that scenario, whether it's a single, like a half-screen device, so you open it up and it's, do however you want to describe that. But I don't know that we need another new app, like Microsoft made. There was a note-taking app in, God, what the heck was it called? I don't even remember anymore. Back in the tablet PC days.
Journal, right?
Thank you. Windows
Kev
Journal.
Brewer just put that in the Discord.
Yeah, thank you. Yep.
Yep.
I think, ultimately what we really want is the apps that we use already to just adapt, right, to those scenarios.
Right. I think they feel like Surface Duo is the evolution of Courier. Like when they think of Courier, I think they think about device and not so much the app. But if they are thinking, what would be the ideal world to live in if you want to make the Duo truly like the vision for Courier, I think they might say Teams.
And with a pen, pen input for it?
Just because Teams is supposed to be like where Microsoft wants you to do everything, develop apps and do all your daily work and communicate and collaborate. Like, I think if you said to them, what's the underlying app that would be the ultimate thing that would make the Duo really that's
a really good point.
Dual screen Moleskine device, I think they might say Teams.
Because
I'm not
Teams
sure
is
I agree.
But it makes sense. It's a container.
Yeah.
You can contain other apps in it. So you could have, in fact, they explicitly mentioned this. You have whiteboard on one side of the screen or on most of the screen. And then you have a little pane of the other people you're having a meeting with, and they're all talking together and they're drawing on the board together. And OneNote, I keep wanting to say something else. OneNote could integrate into that. Word, Excel, and PowerPoint already integrate into that. Yep. Teams is almost Windows. The only thing it's missing right now is email. I mean, it's pretty damn close.
And that's really fascinating because with the Courier demo, much of it was made of swiping through your contacts and such. And if you think about even on an iPad version of Teams, if you split it in half, what would later be ported, if the left side was the list of contacts to interact with, and then the right side was the active area, which whatever you're going to be doing, like a whiteboard, they could still at least achieve some of those more interesting user flows for the device.
The depressing thing is, sometime in the near future, Apple's going to come out with a folding iPhone that will become an iPad mini when you open it up, and they will implement all of these things that we're talking about, and it will just be depressing because we had this stuff years ago.
2009.
Thank you, Trevor. It's nice to meet you. Come back soon. Thank you for joining the club, too. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody.
Makes a big difference. We really appreciate it. Finally, Tony Tech is on the line.
That's not his real name.
Not his real name. I don't know.
Yes, it is.
Is it
I'm sure it's his real name.
He's a IT sysadmin at a large insurance brokerage company. Hi, Tony. Are you there? We have the push-to-talk problem every once in a while. People forget that they turn that on. Well, he's making noise. What did I do wrong? Did I do something wrong? Maybe if I'm pushing that button. I got the volume up. Pump up the volume. I don't know what's going on. So I guess here's a question from the chat room we can go to. Is Paul lying on his stomach during the show?
Yes. Just showing my feet, maybe. There. So I don't remember when this came up. Maybe it was before the show, but there's if not a rich history, certainly a history of me being stuck in a hotel room maybe and not having a lot of room to move around or any place to set up a laptop. And this apartment is probably 1,000 square feet, but there's only one table. It's in the kitchen. The place is made of concrete. The signal is about half as strong out there as it is here. And the table is so big I can't move it in here. So I decided that this would be one of those episodes. So
nice.
Yes. Sorry.
It's kind of
I'm not just hunchbacked.
It has a little bit of a Gidget feel to it. Could you just put your legs up behind you and kick them a little bit? Yeah. There we go. Oh, that's so cute. This could be a TikTok right now.
It's actually, if anyone's ever done this, you would think that laying on a couch or a bed and typing on a laptop would be the most wonderful thing in the world. It's very uncomfortable.
No.
And so
terrible for your posture. Don't do that.
I literally do this every single day. So I work mostly from a desk, but I go up in the middle of the afternoon. Usually I lay on the bed and I do a little bit of work. And it's very uncomfortable. But I figure if I keep doing it, I will get good at it. And all that training has led me to this.
Nice. Now I think we've got Tony Tech. Hi, Tony.
Tony Tech just said, Android widgets in Windows, ?
Oh, that's a good question.
Android widgets.
So we get Android apps, but do we get the widgets, which are, you'd have to install the app, and then the widgets, I don't know.
I don't believe we're going to see the equivalent of an Android home screen, right? These are going to be floating apps by themselves,
right.
So I would say probably not.
Yeah. That's an interesting thought, though.
Yeah, that is a good question, actually, because they're probably going to start getting a lot more sophisticated now that Apple has reinvented them. So,
right.
Yeah, right. Apple invented widgets. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's amazing technology.
Yep. All right. How many of the original Xbox games will work with the Xbox Series X? Ask Virtual.
Oh, I don't know the exact number, but if you go to the Xbox site and you can search for backward compatibility, there's a list, and the list of original games is obviously fairly small compared to the list of games from Xbox 360, but it's some small subset of OG Xbox, some decent selection of 360 games, and then 100% on Xbox One. So if you're on Series X, you have that giant library, which skews toward newer games, obviously. But there's some pretty decent OG games. I don't know the exact number. I'm sorry. It's probably dozens of games.
And this question from the chat room for me, Which Valheim weapon do I prefer? I like the silver sword for meleeing and, of course, for ranged attacks.
So you strike me as more of a like thief in an alley with a knife.
That's what the Draugr Fang is for. Yes, that's exactly right. It's a fascinating world.
You don't see it coming, kind of.
Yeah.
Attack, you know?
No, you actually get bonus points in Valheim if you sneak up behind an opponent.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
I'm sure that's true in Call of Duty too, right? It's easier to kill.
Yeah, you should. You get called out for like a single shot kill or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
Hell, I remember that headshot.
Yeah, that's Unreal Tournament, I think.
Yeah, headshot.
Multi-kill.
Let us move along to the back of the book coming up next. You should see Paul's face. It's so cute. It's so cute. Paul Thurrott's tip of
I'm always like
the week.
Ready to jump in.
You got to appreciate this guy's on vacation and he's still coming up with tips of the week, and he can't wait to tell you.
My picks are slightly mailed in this week, but in light of what happened with Game Pass and the huge collection of great new games, and also because I was talking to my son about this, I was really surprised to discover that my son, who's a much better gamer than I am, of course, it actually subscribed on his own to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, and was kind of excitedly talking about it. And I found that to be fascinating. There's no doubt that, maybe I shouldn't call it the future of video games. It is a future. It's going to be a big chunk of the future of video gaming. And that Microsoft is on to something with Xbox Game Pass. These are subscriptions that you pay for monthly, and you get some collection of hundreds of games. There's EA Play is in there now. All the first-party stuff. Microsoft has more first-party studios than any game company on earth. And these things come out day and date. We got Flight Simulator last month, you know. And when you look at the collection of stuff that is coming out, I should say, in the remainder of this month, I mean, if you haven't checked this thing out, or if you checked it out maybe a year ago and you weren't that impressed, it has exploded in size. And you can sign up for the first month for only 99 cents and see what it's all about. But if you get it on a PC or console, it's $9.99 a month. If you get it in Ultimate form, and you also get the cloud gaming part of it, which is what I should be doing here, by the way, because I could have done this on Windows with an Xbox. All I had to do was bring a controller, and I didn't. Anyway, I didn't think of it. So that one is $14.99. That's Xbox Game Pass Ultimate. The tip is just don't ignore this if you care about games and you're dedicated to a PC or a console. I think it's getting to the point where you need to kind of start checking this thing out. That's the tip. Now,
I did, by the way.
Okay.
Because of you. Because of you. Yeah.
I have a little add-on to. I have an app pick and a half. Okay, so we had talked earlier about how the direction that Microsoft is going in with Windows 11 isn't going to please everybody. There's also, I think, a huge contingent. We'll see how this works out over time. That won't be able to upgrade, right? Because they have a 6th generation Intel processor or a 7th gen. Although we're kind of hoping that those guys are able to squeak under the wire. We'll see. For those people, obviously there are other alternatives. And I think we've kind of moved into an era where a lot of us are doing most of our work in web apps today. And if that's the case, and you want something new and different, and you don't want to stay on Windows 10 and you have an older computer, you can try two different things. You could try a Chromebook, or you could use what's the Neverware, I think it's called, that Google just bought.
Yeah, they just bought
which
them.
lets you put Chromium OS on an older PC, or you could try Linux. And Linux is tough. Linux is something I've been meaning to write about for a long time. It's something I've been investigating on an ongoing basis for years and years and years, but I'm going to start writing about it soon. And I think for typical users who want more hand-holding and less terminal and less complications, you might want to start with one of the more kind of consumer-friendly distributions. And Elementary OS just got a big update. This is something that looks a lot like Mac OS, if you're familiar with that. It has a dock and all that kind of stuff. I just installed the latest. I've installed this before on PCs, actually, but I just installed the new version in a VM because I'm away, but I will install it on a computer when I get back. It's just something to think about. These things are free. There's no harm, no foul here. You can see what of your stuff works and what doesn't, and I mean that in every sense of the word, not just hardware, but the applications you need, the services you use. You don't get native OneDrive integration, for example, obviously in Linux, but something to think about. And then you can you can just keep moving on from there. If elementary is too elementary, there are many, many other distributions. So just something to think about. It's something I happen to have spent a bunch of time playing with this past week. And then this is mostly for Leo's edification. I wanted to provide a quick update on web browsers. We talked about...
Don't tell me not to use Firefox now. Come on.
No, you're going to enjoy this one.
Oh, crap.
So a couple weeks ago, I talked about Vulnerability, and Leo
loved it. Changed over. Yep. Spent hours configuring it. Yep.
So, and then in the meantime, as just a due course as I do, I installed the latest version of Firefox on Windows 11. I thought, my God, this is so natural on this platform. It's like the best browser for Windows 11. It just kind of fits in. It's all rounded rectangles, and it just looks great on it and everything. And I'm here to tell you, Leo, the past week I've been using Brave.
Oh, God, don't please, no.
I have some news for you. You should stick with Firefox.
Oh, thank God.
I have had weird issues with Brave that I cannot explain. And I'll just to kind of state it simply, I'll be using, everything's fine. It works. It's normal. It's okay. And then all of a sudden, like, sites won't refresh. Like, I won't get email and Gmail, and I can't. I actually have to kill the browser. And when I do that, I bring it. It's fine, and I have no idea why. And it's happened on 2 different computers now because I just put Brave on this computer. And I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm going to stick with Firefox. So.
I really like Firefox. There's one negative.
What is it?
It's a minor thing.
I have one too.
The new tab design doesn't have a very big. They took they've made the line, the divider between tabs, almost invisible.
Right.
And it bothers me. I want a little bit stronger line. There's ways to do that, but it's complicated. And just a minor thing. I do really like Firefox, and I think you're right. Yeah. What you said about it last week, which is it's I think aesthetically the best of the browsers out there. It's very clean, very nice. They've done a nice job.
The only thing I don't like about Firefox is there's kind of an old-fashioned downloading experience that goes on where I find it a little
Vivaldi's download is really amazing. It's really cool. They give you all the information. They do a nice job because they have that sidebar. But Vivaldi's a very busy thing.
Yep.
So
you have to work a lot to kind of clean it down to what you have. Yeah. I like it overall.
Yeah. You know what? I keep them all around. I actually use Brave too. I haven't experienced those issues with Brave at all. But
I had, I don't. I'm gonna try it at home and see if I can duplicate it on my computer.
It's interesting, huh?
Yeah, weird problem.
Brave, like a lot of browsers, tries to shut down tabs that are running and using a lot of processor and.
That's the other thing. You go back to another tab and it's a blank window and it reloads and it's like, guys, come on! I have 32 gigs of RAM. Let's go. Yeah. Come on.
All right. Now we go to our enterprise pick of the week and the very patient and understanding Mary Jo Foley.
No, you know what's kind of good now that we have the Discord when you guys are talking about
games. You're just chatting away in there. Yeah.
I'm just like, blah, 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 GIF, blah, 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 blah.
I love the GIFs. The animated GIFs are so much fun.
They're fun.
Yeah. And I like the group in there. They're really a nice group.
Yeah,
of people, so
totally.
I'm glad you go in there.
You guys are keeping me entertained, so thank you.
Yes.
Okay, enterprise pick of the week. So I don't know how many people who listen to Windows Weekly look at the Microsoft 365 roadmap as much as I do. But whenever anyone asks me a question like, where is this? Did they say it's a date for when such and such feature is coming? That's where I always go to the roadmap. It's a public roadmap. Not every product's on there, but many products are there. And they give you a tentative date for when they think they're going to launch it and which clouds, et cetera, et cetera. So they're updating the roadmap in early September, which I'm kind of excited about. They say that they're going to make changes in the roadmap in terms of how you view, filter, search for, and sort the information. This to me is super exciting because a lot of times I'll put a word in that I think will give me the product I'm looking for, but no. So I'm hoping they're going to make the information easier to find. You know, like I was looking recently for the lightweight Visio app that they said was going to be made free to all Office 365 and Microsoft 365 commercial customers, and I was trying, as one would, the word Visio to find that in the roadmap, but no, never showed up. So I'm like, okay, there's some other word I'm not searching on for the Visio app, I guess. I don't know. So yeah, they're saying they're going to make a bunch of UI changes. There's going to be some new way of displaying features that are coming in feature cards, they're calling them. They're going to change the way that they actually calculate the date for when things will roll out to make more sense, so that it won't be registering from the time it goes into preview, but actually like the time when something is going to launch to the mainstream. That will be the date they give us. So a lot of good changes that I think will make the Microsoft 365 roadmap way more useful. So they right now, if this doesn't get pushed back, they're saying this will happen in early September. So I'm crossing my fingers for that one.
Good.
Yep.
And the buzz, I like this. This is a new one. Buzzword of the week. I'm thinking John Oliver had something to do with this one. Did you see it on Sunday?
Yeah, and they pointed to one of my friend's stories on the air.
Nice.
Zach Whitaker, who I think you know too.
Zach does a great job. Yeah.
Yep.
On ZDNet.
So, buzzword, ransomware. The reason I made it the buzzword of the week is because if you look at some of Microsoft's recent announcements, I almost feel like they're just like, let's throw the word ransomware in there because it'll get way more pickup by all the reporters because that's a hot topic right now. So this week they announced they had invested some not disclosed amount in a company called Rubrics, which is a cloud data management platform. And they said, we're investing some undisclosed amount, which Bloomberg says probably low tens of millions in this company. And the whole reason they're doing it is to help better secure Microsoft and third-party apps on Azure from ransomware. And I'm like, okay, so I guess there's a ransomware angle in here. This is a data management company and a data storage company, but okay. They also call this Rubrics calls themselves a zero trust company now because that's another buzzword, right? So yeah, that's one of the ransomware references I saw this week. And then last week there was Azure Sentinel getting what Microsoft calls Fusion AI early ransomware detection. That capability is now in preview. So Sentinel is like analytics for security that Microsoft sells. And so what they're doing is trying to add ransomware detection to the kind of thing that you can look at preventatively using Sentinel across all your apps and all your data to see if there's any kind of ransomware worries that you should have about this. And that capability is now in preview. So I don't know if Paul remembers this, but we thought Microsoft would be doing an event sometime this summer or early fall called like everything we're doing in security, the way they've done Windows and gaming and all right. We still haven't seen that event happen, but I'm guessing all these ransomware announcements are kind of gearing up for them to do some kind of announcement, I would guess in the early fall at this point, around what they've got going in security and what's next for security. So we'll stay tuned to see what they say there. Yeah.
Interesting. And I think you have come up with, at the last minute, a beer pick of the week.
So I wanted to make this a beer pick for a while because I love what this brewery is doing. So the brewery is Off Color Brewing. They're in Chicago. They've decided that beer names are just getting kind of ridiculous, and I have to kind of agree, because a lot of times you see a beer name and you're like, I wonder, is that an IPA? Is it a stout? I don't know what it is. So their idea at Off Color Brewing is, what if we just gave beers names that made sense to normal people? So they've got a beer they sell called Beer for Ball Games. Like they just are like, let's make an easy drinker that people could drink at ball games.
With the drinking instructions in the name. This
is the Microsoft Bob of beers.
Yeah, the Bob of beers.
They've got beer for golf, beer for burgers, beer for brunch, beer for tacos, beer for pizza, and my pick, beer for beaches. So, beer for beaches.
See, I completely misunderstood what that was for.
Right.
Okay.
See, aren't you glad I gave you the explanation?
Yes,
going
thank
up
you.
To the beer?
Yes.
So they said this is a beach house style beer. That style doesn't exist, but they've made it up as a beer style.
They're all made up.
They took a light beer. They added in cranberry, peach, and lemon juice, and they said they wanted to make it reminiscent of the Sex on the Beach cocktail, but something that 6%. You could be at a beach house with your friends and just drink this very light, like nice fruity, kind of like not any heavy hops in it. kind of a cross, I'd say, between a sour and maybe like a blonde ale. Just something really fun and easy to drink. So I like that they're doing this because I think so many times beer has become way overwhelming for normal people, and you need easy names that are just kind of descriptive of what.
Winification of beer, right? It's become a specialty
yeah.
thing you have to be an expert to understand.
Right? I know. Yeah, I really like that they're doing this, and everybody who's trying these beers is like, you know what? They're actually really good beer, and it's nice to just not have to think about what I'm buying, and if I'm going to a taco party, just pick up beer for tacos. Okay, there we go. It'll work.
That's good.
So yeah, good job, Off Color, and they make a lot of excellent beers. I've had they do a Dino S'mores beer, which is like s'mores,
I like it.
s'mores in a stout form. Yeah. They do a lot of really fun stuff, and they're a really good group. So good. If you see any off-color beer, give it a shot.
Nice.
Off-color beer for beaches. Love it. Love it. And I love this show. Thank you, guys. Great episode. Paul, Gidget Thurrott is kicking up his heels at thurrott.com, THURROTT.com. Love it.
It's hard for me to do that for some reason.
Now, the trick is that you got to get them behind your head. The TikTokers all do this and make bunny ears. No? Okay.
I'm not that flexible. Right?
His book, The Field Guide to Windows 10, is at leanpub.com, and that's really a great guide for anybody who wants to understand Windows 10 better, use it better, including an entire chapter on the snipping tool. Everything you'd
There was an entire section in the chapter on taking screenshots, and that's part of it.
There you go. Okay. Mary Jo Foley writes for ZDNet. Her blog, allaboutmicrosoft.com, covers the latest news from Microsoft with an enterprise slant, and both of them together make the dynamic duo of Windows reporting. They show up here, magically appear in my screen every Wednesday morning at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1800 UTC. If you want to enjoy the show live, participate in our Q&As, things like that, best way to do that would be to tune in at twit.tv/live. There's a live audio or video stream there. The chat room is irc.twit.tv. That's free and open to all. Of course, our Club Twit members get a chat room as well, and that's in the Discord. For more information about Club Twit, $7 a month gives you ad-free versions of all of our shows, Discord access, plus a special Twit Plus feed. Just go to twit.tv/Club Twit. On-demand versions of the show available at the website, twit.tv/WW. There's a YouTube channel dedicated to Windows Weekly, of course. You can subscribe there. Best way to subscribe would be get a podcast client and search for Windows Weekly. Subscribe. If that client allows for reviews, please leave us a 5-star review so everybody knows about Paul and Mary Jo. Spread the love. Spread the word. Thank you all for being here. And I will see you next Wednesday. Paul, you'll be home. Sad, but home.
Oh. Hot and humid and home.
Oh. Yes, you will.
Well, enjoy your last couple of days in Mexico City. It sounds like you've been having a great trip. Mary Jo, you stay cool too. We'll see you both next week.
Yeah.
Windows Weekly. Bye-bye.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed that episode. If you are interested in checking out all things smart home and Internet of Things, then you should check out Smart Tech Today, the podcast I, Micah Sargent, do with my co-host Matthew Casanelli. It's all about the smart home and improving your automations.